Chapter 25:38. Alchemists were very profitable, especially high-level alchemists. Every time they concocted pills for others, they would receive an astonishing fee, and if they concocted pills themselves, they would auction them off. Ling Han wanted to concoct pills for others, and then receive Celestial King tier medicine as payment. That way, he would not need to concoct pills a few times, and he would have the materials to concoct a new Crimson Clear Flame pill. This time, he was throwing a brick to attract jade. As expected, after a few days, someone communicated with him, asking him to help concoct pills. There was only one person, and there was no endless stream of people as imagined. This was very normal. Who knew how good Ling Han's alchemy was? What if he messed up his own pill? This first person was also very daring. Ling Han prepared for a few days before starting to concoct pills. Very soon, the pills were concocted, and the quality was very high. That person left joyfully. The news spread, and the next day, 3 people came separately, asking Ling Han to help concoct pills. Ling Han began to get busy. Celestial kings were all very rich, and the longer they cultivated, the more astonishing their wealth, causing Ling Han's pockets to bulge. He had the time celestial physique, and concocting a cauldron of celestial pills only took a few hours in the real world, so the speed at which he earned money was naturally shocking. Ling Han's reputation grew, and more people asked him to concoct pills. The rate of success was really shocking, and as the number of pills he concocted increased, the quality of the pills also steadily improved. Everyone knew that an impressive alchemy king had appeared in the martial arts academy. 3 years later, bewitching maiden Ro came out of seclusion. She had successfully broken through to level 3. Knowing that Ling Han had arrived, she was naturally overjoyed, and Little Terror finally saw Ling Han and immediately rushed over. With a purng, he almost knocked over Ling Han. The little guy's current strength was too terrifying. His cultivation was at level 5, but his strength soared to the peak of level 6, so the collision naturally made Ling Han grit his teeth. Ling Han laughed loudly and picked up Little Terror. This little guy is getting stronger and stronger, and should be very delicious to eat. The large black dog appeared, drooling at Little Terror. Why was he the same as Tigress? How much immortal gold did you get? Ling Han asked. Pay. Do you think that divine metal is some cabbage that can be found anywhere you want? The large black dog immediately shouted. Grandpa Dog came back to get some fresh air. Can't I? Ling Han's face was full of suspicion. Did you get into trouble and deliberately came back to hide? The large black dog immediately yawned, his eyes darting about incessantly. As expected, this darn dog was not one to stay put and cause trouble everywhere it went. Thankfully, it was a 9th firmament immortal king. Otherwise, it would have been beaten to death many times over. It said a few words and slipped away. Perhaps it had caused quite a bit of trouble this time. Ling Han ignored him. He drew out a Crimson Clear Flame pill and shared it with the Empress and bewitching maiden Ro. After 3 years, he had only managed to concoct a total of 3 pills. One had to know that a single Crimson Clear Flame pill was enough to make immortal kings below the 5th heaven fight over it. To refine 3 in 3 years, this was extremely shocking. They took the medicine and began to refine it. The refinement of a Celestial King level great pill was very slow. After a whole year, Ling Han finally finished refining this great pill, and this was after he had used the acceleration of the flow of time. Otherwise, it would have taken him about 1,000 years. The improvement was very obvious. At first, he had been in the early stage of the 3rd heaven, and now he had suddenly reached the late stage. 10 billion years of bitter cultivation could only improve so little. In reality, the improvement of alchemical pills would not take into account the acceleration of the flow of time. With Ling Han's acceleration of time by 1,000 times, a single Crimson Clear Flame pill would only save him 10 million years of bitter cultivation. Thus, this kind of improvement was reasonable. I can't take another Crimson Clear Flame pill in the short term. As an alchemist, Ling Han was the most sensitive to the effects of alchemical pills. There were toxins left behind by alchemical pills in his body, and there would be great problems if he took another Crimson Clear Flame pill without waiting for these toxins to be purged. He examined carefully. These toxins were actually regulations, but their level was very high. With his ability, he could not dispel them in one go. He had to slowly grind his way through them, and thus it took a very long time. When Ling Han came out of seclusion, the Empress also came out very soon. She, too, had the grand cosmic infinite body, and the acceleration of the flow of time was the same as Ling Han's, but bewitching Maiden Ro was slower. Not long after, Ji Wuming came to visit, and he revealed Ling Han's true identity with a single glance. Ling Han couldn't help but feel gloomy. At first, he was confident that he could deceive everyone. Ho ho, such freakish talent in martial art, and you are also a grandmaster alchemist. There are not many people like you, Ji Wuming said. Ji Wuming said, moreover, I didn't believe that you would die so easily, so I immediately guessed that it was you. Thankfully, Tian Xing had only battled him once and did not understand him. Otherwise, he should have guessed that not only was he not dead, but he had also already come to the academy. Not only Ji Wuming, but Yi Yen Xianlu and the others also came one after another. They all had the same guess. Ling Han definitely could not have died in the celestial realm, though they did not know when he would come here. There were also Ling Hua and the other incarnations of the 9 source powers of heaven and earth. They had come together with the Empress and the others. The source powers of heaven and earth naturally had superior aptitude, and their cultivation speed was astonishing. At present, the 9 of them were all 5th heaven celestial kings. However, success or failure was also due to source powers. It was practically impossible for them to break through to the heavenly venerable tier, as they were bound to the level of regulations. Their peaceful life was very soon shattered, because Xiaoying Xiong had come again. Let's battle again in the 9 deaths formation. He issued a challenge. Ling Han was surprised. Why had this guy come again so quickly? He must have eaten some natural treasure, and his battle prowess had suddenly soared greatly. Otherwise, how could he have such confidence? All right. He nodded. In a battle of equals, he did not fear anyone. 3 days later, Xiaoying Xiong said, this challenge very quickly alarmed the academy. After all, it was a prodigy on the battle prowess rankings. Not only were the students of this year very interested, but there were also a considerable number of people from the previous year and the year before that who decided to go and watch the battle. 3 days passed very quickly. Ling Han walked towards the 9 deaths formation. When he arrived, he couldn't help but grimace. There were too many people here, weren't there? It was a black mass, and there were not only humans, but also half-humans. Some had tails, some had goat heads, some had donkey heads, and there were all kinds of races. The present fiery frost plane had gathered the prodigies of all the races of the origin world. It was a huge hodgepodge. Xiaoying Xiong was already waiting for him. He sat cross-legged on the ground, and a sword was placed on his lap, but it was not unsheathed. He was like a dragon hidden in the abyss, and once unsheathed he would be able to shock the world. Treasures could not be used in challenging the levels, but he was only borrowing the 9 deaths formation to have a fair battle with Ling Han. You've come, Xiaoying Xiong said solemnly. Ling Han smiled slightly. Is this what you're relying on? He pointed at the other's sword. We'll know after we fight. Ling Han chuckled and walked into the 3rd level of the 9 deaths formation. He would not be complacent. His opponent was only worse than him because he did not cultivate physical techniques. In terms of the power of rules, he was not inferior to him in a battle of the same level, or only at a slight disadvantage. If he went to fight in the 4th level, he would be at a great disadvantage. Xiaoying Xiong also walked in and confronted Ling Han. You're not fighting? Ling Han was surprised. Xiaoying Xiong casually waved his sword, and without even unsheathing it, he said, I have. Ling Han chuckled. You're not here to spar. You have other motives, right? Chapter 25:39. Smart, Xiaoying Xiong praised. I do have something to discuss with you. Ling Han was surprised. What could be discussed between him and Xiaoying Xiong? He pondered for a moment before saying, Please speak. We discovered an ancient ruin, and we hope that you can join us, Xiaoying Xiong said solemnly. Ling Han nodded. Such a good thing, and you actually thought of me. Not only were they not friends, but they were also rivals in love. Of course, this was Xiao Yingxiong's way of doing things. If there was a good thing like exploring an ancient ruin, how could it be Ling Han's turn? Xiao Yingxiong snorted. If it wasn't necessary, you wouldn't have such an opportunity for no reason. That's because to open the ruin, we need many Super Emperor stars with evolution indexes of 11 and above. We don't have enough right now. Ling Han couldn't help but ponder whether these words were true or false. Was this a trap for him? After all, if he left the martial institution, there wouldn't be a celestial venerable guarding it. I need more information about this ruin, Ling Han said. Take it. Xiao Yingxiong threw over a jade talisman. I knew you would have such a request. Take it and study it. I'll come and find you in 3 days. Ling Han took the jade talisman, and Xiao Yingxiong turned and left without any hesitation. With a smile, Ling Han also exited the great array, and just happened to see Xiao Yingxiong flying away. The surrounding people were all completely confused. Who had won this battle? How could it be over so quickly? Ling Han returned to his cave and shared the information in the jade talisman with the Empress. The information was very detailed. This ancient ruin once belonged to a ninth heaven celestial king. It was said that he died because he failed to become a quasi-celestial venerable. Thus, this ancient ruin might contain the experiences of this celestial king. They wanted to obtain it and use it as a reference so that they wouldn't take the wrong path. Even though Xiao Yingxiong was a Super Emperor star and had an evolution index of 11, he didn't have the confidence to become a celestial venerable. Even if celestial venerables were immortal, there were only 10 or so in a plane. The number was shockingly low. Could it be that there had been too few geniuses since ancient times? Did they lack Super Emperor stars? It was just that becoming a heavenly sovereign was too difficult. Even with a Super Emperor star, there was a high chance of failure, and one's cultivation would turn to nothing. A failed case might be more valuable than a successful one. As such, even a Super Emperor star like Xiao Yingxiong was tempted and desperately wanted to obtain it. Ling Han's heart was also moved. It was one thing for him to have confidence in himself, but the truth was another. We might as well take a look, the Empress said. Ling Han nodded. It's not just this immortal king's insights on becoming a heavenly lord. The person who has the right to take that step is definitely an outstanding ninth firmament immortal king. His collection should be astonishing. Call the large black dog over. He's a ninth heaven celestial king. And Vari. There was no need to call the others. If even the large black dog couldn't handle it, then it would be useless even if Ling Hua and the others joined forces. Ling Han went to inform the large black dog, and this despicable dog immediately agreed. He also wanted to see the insights of a celestial king breaking through to the heavenly lord tier, especially the ones that had failed. This was because every celestial venerables had opened up their own path, and there was not much meaning in learning from them. However, they could learn from their failures, and thus avoid them. Vari had never been enthusiastic about this kind of thing, but he didn't object either. In any case, he could refine the dimensional scroll no matter what state he was in. With these two powerful reinforcements in place, Ling Han naturally felt much more assured. 3 days later, Xiao Yingxiong silently arrived. After conversing with Ling Han for a while, he left in satisfaction because he had obtained the answer he needed. Another month later, Xiao Yingxiong sent someone to inform him that everyone was present, and they would set off the next morning. Ling Han, the Empress, the large black dog, and Vari arrived at the agreed place together. Bewitching maiden Rose stayed in the academy. Her strength was not enough, so it was better for her to stay in the academy and continue cultivating. Little Terror also stayed behind to protect this little bewitching maiden. Of course, the spatial celestial tool was also left behind by Ling Han. If they cultivated in the academy, the advancement of the women would be much faster. There were many people who came. Ji Wuming, Fire Hibiscus, and many others that Ling Han didn't recognize. They should all be this batch of students, but they came from different planes. The Rain Emperor, Shichan Zi, Jialan, and the others were not qualified. They were imperial stars, but not super imperial stars. Their evolution index was only 10, and they were not qualified to participate in this exploration. Xiao Yingxiong, Gu Hei, and Miao Hua were all beings above imperial stars. When it was the large black dog's turn, Miao Hua immediately humphed coldly. No pets. Pet your sister, your whole family are pets. The large black dog immediately pounced, and with a purring, pressed Miao Hua onto the ground. That brat is my human pet, do you understand? The large black dog had always been mischievous. He was clearly a ninth heaven celestial king, yet he had never revealed his true strength. Only now did everyone realize that his battle prowess was incredibly powerful. So it's a senior. Forgive us for our lack of manners. Gu He tried to smooth things over. The large black dog spat at Miao Hua, and only then did he release his paw. Miao Hua was almost angered to death. He was a super imperial star, yet a dog actually spat on his face. However, the large black dog's strength was who knew how many times stronger than his, so he could only watch on helplessly. He swore in his heart that when his cultivation level was the same as the large black dog's, he would definitely take revenge for this. Xiaoying Xiong and Gu He exchanged a look, both frowning slightly. Though they had invited Ling Han, they did not harbor any good intentions, and planned to kill him in the ancient ruins. Now, however, there was an additional large black dog with unfathomable strength, which made things difficult for them. Is everyone here? A super imperial star asked. He was a fifth heaven celestial king, and he was not a native of the Firefrost Plain. His name was Lu Hao, and he had come to the academy over 3 billion years ago. We're still missing one, Gu He said. Who is it? Another person asked. His name was Luo Yangqiu, and he was also a fifth heaven celestial king. Have I come too late? A long laugh rang out, and a terrifying aura surged over. A celestial king flew over, his entire body radiating a terrifying aura, and there were even 9 rays of light revolving around him. Ninth heaven celestial king Ling Han's eyes narrowed. That was Imperial Void. He was definitely mortal enemies with Feng Qing's bloodline, and he also had a grudge with Imperial Void. He had been repeatedly targeted and coveted by Imperial Void. Why had this old fellow come? The reason was very simple. Celestial King Imperial Void was also about to break through to the heavenly sovereign tier, so the failure of another celestial king was extremely meaningful to him. In fact, he needed this information even more than Ling Han and the others. This was because he was about to break through to the heavenly sovereign tier, so he had to be careful. Senior. A ninth heaven celestial king had appeared, and even though they were all super imperial stars, they had no choice but to bow. Celestial King Imperial Void smiled and said, "There's no need to be so polite." Although he had an advantage in terms of cultivation level, if he did not break through to the heavenly sovereign tier, the people here would soon catch up to him in terms of cultivation level, and they might even surpass him. This was because the heavenly sovereign tier was too difficult to break through. How long had he been stuck at the ninth heaven celestial king tier? Chapter 2540. The Imperial Void Celestial King naturally noticed the large black dog as well. His smiling expression immediately disappeared, and his eyes became sharp and filled with killing intent. Despicable dog, you actually dare to appear in front of me. The large black dog's eyes darted around, and he showed a guilty expression, but he did not back down and shouted, "Why wouldn't I dare?" The Imperial Void Celestial King attacked brazenly. He was a ninth heaven celestial king, so what did he have to fear? In fact, among ninth heaven celestial kings, he was also one of the best. Apart from heavenly venerables, how many people could suppress him? Boom, the large hand pressed down, and all the stars in the sky trembled. This was an extremely powerful celestial king. All the hair on the large black dog's body stood on end. Xiao, his figure suddenly flashed, and his speed was astonishingly fast. Before the large hand pressed down, he had already run out. Then he stood up, pointed at the Imperial Void Celestial King, and said, "Imperial Void, little brat, Grandpa Dog will not lower himself to your level. If I beat you until you cry, your master will run out to make trouble for Grandpa Dog." Everyone was speechless. It was clearly the large black dog who did not dare to fight, but he still said such nice words. He was really despicable. However, to be able to escape from the Imperial Void Celestial King, this large black dog's strength was definitely not ordinary and could not be underestimated. The Imperial Void Celestial King did not attack again. He already knew that the large black dog was cunning and specialized in escaping, so it was extremely difficult to capture him. It could be said that a heavenly venerate had to make a move. Humph, the descendants of the fate-born heavenly venerate are all such cowards, he said coldly. Ling Han was displeased and he coughed lightly and said, "Little brat over there, why are you so ugly?" The Imperial Void Celestial King was stunned. He was ugly? He was not a peerlessly handsome man, but he was definitely not ugly. Moreover, he had already cultivated to their level, so what was the point of beauty and ugliness? The key was strength, and strength was the deciding factor. So, this brat was deliberately provoking him. A mere third heaven junior also dared to act arrogantly in front of him. How laughable. He clasped his hands behind his back and said, "Although the Academy has rules that one cannot fight across 2 tiers, but since you actively provoked me, no one will blame me even if I beat you up." Ling Han laughed. "Imperial Void, do you dare to fight in the 9 Extremes formation?" The Imperial Void Immortal King scoffed. "I'm a dignified king of the 9 heavens, so why should I lower myself to the same level as you? It's just the 9th heaven. Who here can't reach that level? So there's no need to show off," Ling Han said lightly. "If you're capable, then fight at the same level. That way, the winner will be more convincing." Xiao Xiong and the others nodded their heads. If any of them found it difficult to break through to the 9th celestial layer, then they would not be qualified to enter the martial courtyard. A high realm only meant that you cultivated early. Whether or not you could break through to the Empyrean realm was the key. And what kind of people are more likely to break through to the Celestial Master Realm? Of course, those with a higher evolution index would be more ferocious in battles of the same level. "Do you dare or are you afraid?" Ling Han asked. Imperial Void Immortal King felt a bit embarrassed. He was used to being high and mighty. In the immortal domain, he was even more unbridled and unbridled, killing whoever he wanted. However, it was different here. Even heavenly venerable Feng Qing had to keep a low profile here, or else he would be taught a lesson. He thought about it. He was also a super emperor star, and his evolution index was as high as 11. Even if his realm was suppressed, his combat awareness would not be affected, so he would naturally have the upper hand in a fight. Was there a need to be afraid? "All right, let's fight," Imperial Void Immortal King said. Xiao Xiong and the others immediately shook their heads and sighed on behalf of Imperial Void Immortal King. "You still don't know that this guy is Zhang San or Li Si, right? He left his name on the first immemorial stone and reached as high as 8, suppressing Tianqing. Moreover, he fought with Xiao Xiong a few days ago, and in the end, Xiao Xiong suffered a crushing defeat. This guy's evolution index should be at 12. Only Xiao Xiong knew that Ling Han's evolution index had not reached 12. It was just that his physical skills were too terrifying, making his battle prowess comparable to the most monstrous with an evolution index of 12. This was information that he had obtained after suffering a crushing defeat, and he did not plan to share it with anyone. Instead, he planned to take down Ling Han and obtain the secret of his powerful physical skills for himself. He naturally had ulterior motives for inviting Ling Han this time. Imperial Void Immortal King really did not know who Ling Han was and only thought that everyone was a super emperor star. In that case, what did he have to fear? The two of them quickly arrived in front of the 9 extinction formation. Ling Han directly chose the 3rd formation and entered. Imperial Void Immortal King did not hesitate and also entered. This could be counted as a same-level battle. He would mercilessly attack and give Ling Han a crushing defeat, making him suffer the consequences of his own actions. "Young man, you still have a long way to go." Boom. Imperial Void Immortal King still wanted to say a few more words, but he saw an iron fist smashing over with terrifying flames of the Great Tao. He had no choice but to shut up. His palms flew out and met Ling Han's attack. The two of them fought, each using their ultimate moves and exchanging blows. It was incomparably intense. Imperial Void Immortal King was somewhat shocked and even more jealous. This was because Ling Han faintly had the intention of suppressing him. In a same-level battle, he was actually slightly inferior to his opponent. One had to know that he was already a Super Emperor star with an evolution index as high as 11. What was stronger than him with an evolution index of 12? Although there was not much evidence, if one's evolution index reached 12, they would definitely be able to become a heavenly sovereign. For example, Hibiscus. She was such a supreme genius. It was just that heavenly sovereign green fire wanted her to soar higher, so he sealed her and only appeared in this generation. It was just that although the three heavenly sovereigns had all made divinations, they had clearly been deceived by heaven and earth. The biggest fortuitous opportunity on the path of cultivation was simply a trap. This was an off-topic topic. How long had Imperial Void Immortal King been in the ninth heaven? Several epochs? But he only had a vague hope. He did not know how far he was from breaking through. However, this young man in front of him almost had the potential to directly become a heavenly sovereign. How could he not be envious? Becoming an Empyrean was his greatest wish, as well as his greatest hatred. It surpassed everything else. Damn it, he said in his heart. With a thought, a green ancient bell immediately appeared above his head. This was his immortal artifact, the ancient Chen bell. Ding. The ancient bell rang by itself, creating a ripple that spread in all directions. As the bell rang, even the space within the formation began to shatter. The might of an immortal artifact was shockingly great. Imperial Void Immortal King sneered. Young man, your foundation is far from enough to contend with me. This ancient Qian bell was forged from 17 types of immortal metals. It is equivalent to 17 immortal kings joining forces to attack. How will you block it? Who is the strongest in the same realm? Immortal artifact? It was simple. First, it was indestructible. Second, it was invincible. These two advantages added together were amazing. The ancient Qian bell was forged from 17 types of immortal metals. Although its hardness could not be increased, its sharpness was the same. However, it was equivalent to 17 immortal kings joining forces. This was terrifying. The bell rang out, destroying the space layer by layer. Its power was boundless. However, Ling Han revealed a smile. Chapter 2541. Ling Han was dumbfounded. Of course not. He was happy because the Imperial Void Celestial King said that this bell was forged from 17 celestial metals. 17 kinds. If they were swallowed by the Divine Demon Sword, then the Divine Demon Sword's power would definitely improve further. If it was another place, Ling Han would definitely be helpless, because the ancient bell was a 9th heaven-level precious tool. Putting aside the fact that he couldn't suppress it, after it automatically awakened and released its power, it could easily injure Ling Han severely. But here, under the suppression of cultivation level, the ancient bell would fall to 3rd heaven level. In a battle of the same cultivation level, even if there were 17 opponents, what did Ling Han have to fear? He laughed loudly and finally used his body technique. Instantly his battle prowess skyrocketed. So what if it was a celestial tool? No matter how strong a celestial tool was, it was only a tool, not a person, and had an upper limit. It was true that you were the sharpest and the sturdiest, but battle prowess wasn't enough with these 2 points. The Imperial Void Celestial King was incredibly shocked. Ling Han's battle prowess suddenly soared by 4 or 5 times, at least. Ling Han's body technique and the power of regulation showed their might together, and it wasn't as simple as 1 + 1, but 3 times, 5 times so much. He paled in shock, finally knowing why Ling Han dared to challenge him. Fuck, was this really a 3rd heaven celestial king? Humph, I have a celestial tool in hand, what can you do to me? The Imperial Void Celestial King recalled the ancient bell, and a myriad of magnificent brilliance fell, protecting him within. This clearly showed that my battle prowess was inferior to yours, but my defense was invincible, so come and break it. It was very shameless, but also very effective. 17 kinds of celestial metals fused together was equivalent to 17 celestial kings joining forces to protect, and added with the Imperial Void Celestial King's own strength, this was really an unassailable defense. The Imperial Void Celestial King stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes fixed on Ling Han. He had already decided in his heart that if there was a chance, he would definitely kill this freak of a young man. Is that so? Ling Han smiled lightly, and also drew the divine demon sword. Shua, a cold light shone, and Ling Han swung his sword, slashing towards the ancient bell's treasure chi that fell. Boom! With a loud bang, the chi of treasures was actually torn apart. Fortunately, the remaining chi of treasures fell in time to protect the gap, not giving Ling Han the opportunity to break through. Imperial Void Immortal King was greatly astonished. His treasured artifact was formed from the fusion of 17 types of immortal metal. Even though it was impossible to truly fuse them into one, it was still equivalent to 17 immortal kings joining hands. Wasn't that still not enough? However, Ling Han's sword was even more terrifying. It had truly fused the might of the immortal gold together. It was like a third firmament immortal king had entered the fourth firmament through arduous cultivation. These were two completely different paths of improvement. How experienced was he? He immediately exclaimed, "This is devouring metal steel." In the entire world, only the devouring metal or had the ability to increase its own strength by swallowing all the metals in the world. It could even break through the limits of immortal metal and refine it into a treasure for an Empyrean. He knew that it was because Empyrean sealed Qing had such a treasure. Is this destiny? Imperial Void Immortal King's eyes spat out flames. His evolution index was 12, and he even possessed the devouring metal. It was as if the heavens and earth were using this method to tell him that this was the next Empyrean. He wasn't convinced. How was he inferior? He had bitterly cultivated for several epochs and always stood at the peak of the Immortal King realm. Why wasn't he the one who obtained such a fortuitous encounter? Ah! He roared. The immortal bell buzzed and vibrated, emitting intense fluctuations. Imperial Void Immortal King's emotions were somewhat out of control. He wanted to erupt with even stronger power and blast Ling Han into dregs. Unfortunately, this was the 9 extremes formation that was laid out by a Empyrean. It wasn't even 1 or 2 steps, but 5 or 6 steps. How could Imperial Void Immortal King break it? Ling Han brandished his sword and slashed madly. Ding 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 wang wang wang. He didn't attack Imperial Void Immortal King, but slashed at the ancient bell instead. It was because he knew that it was impossible to kill Imperial Void Immortal King. Even if his cultivation realm was suppressed in the formation, there was an Empyrean overseeing the martial academy. How could he be allowed to act recklessly? Then he would take advantage of him. He brandished his sword with his right hand and clenched his left hand into a fist, striking the ancient bell again and again. This was the Rage Fist. Recently, he had integrated various fist intents into it. It was not completely formed yet, but there was a direction. The Imperial Void Immortal King could be considered as a rare opponent. Moreover, Ling Han's hatred towards him was not light, and it just happened to be in line with the concept of the Rage Fist, allowing him to master this fist technique even faster. What kind of character was the Imperial Void Immortal King? Even if his cultivation was suppressed, it didn't mean that his judgment was the same. He couldn't help but be angered to the point of going mad. This brat actually dared to use him as a sparring partner? What kind of contempt was this? He erupted with rage and began to counterattack. The ancient bell shone and symbols jumped about one after another, but they were immediately suppressed by a mysterious power. There was nothing he could do about it. This was the 9 absolutes array. Even if a 9th firmament immortal monarch entered, he would have to be at a certain cultivation realm. Ling Han cleared his mind of distracting thoughts and began to execute his raging fist. In the past few days, he had already integrated all kinds of fist intents into the Rage Fist, but it was a hodgepodge. Not only did it not increase the power of the Rage Fist, but it was also nondescript. All kinds of willpower clashed, and it was even a little ridiculous. It was like a drunkard punching. However, Ling Han didn't care at all. His heart was clear, and he had the heart to tolerate the world. He wanted to create a cultivation technique that belonged to him. Techniques didn't have to be limited to fists, swords, and sabers. At his level, was there any difference? Yes, there was a difference whether he used an immortal artifact or not, but if he tossed this aside, there was no difference. I have the heart to tolerate the world. My intent is this heaven, this earth, this free and unrestrained heart. Ling Han suddenly laughed loudly. The intent of the rage fist was too small, and it caused him to be limited to the emotions of anger. This was a minor Dao. My Dao is to make the heavens unable to cover my eyes, and make the earth unable to bury my heart. I am me, and I am unique, Ling Han said in his heart. His thoughts instantly became clear. Clang. Even in the 9 absolutes array, the sound of thunder immediately rang out. Dark clouds surged, and lightning intersected. This was the arrival of the heavenly tribulation. Ling Han quivered. With a single thought, he actually triggered the heavenly tribulation. Damn, was there a need to be so exaggerated? However, he also understood that his Tao, which was only in its embryonic form, was incomparably awesome. It caused this super high-grade plane to be jealous and want to wipe him out. One had to know that the stronger the plane, the more tolerant it was. Here, even a 7-step heavenly venerate wouldn't be struck by lightning the moment they appeared. But now, Ling Han had only formed an embryonic form of martial art in his mind, and it caused heaven and earth to target him. This showed how extraordinary his Tao was. The Imperial Void Celestial King was shocked to the extreme. This fellow was too terrifying. Tao light was flickering all over his body. This was comprehension. But he was clearly fighting, and he could also comprehend the Tao like this? He even triggered the heavenly tribulation. How could this be ordinary? This was too dangerous. Who was this person? Imperial Void Celestial King's gaze was resolute. He decided to disrupt Ling Han's comprehension. He definitely had to. No matter what Ling Han was comprehending, this was too terrifying. He definitely couldn't let him succeed. Purple light appeared on Imperial Void Celestial King's body, and his aura instantly rose by a large amount. This was a secret art created by Heavenly Venerate Feng Qing. He had learned it, but he normally wouldn't use it. But this secret art was too domineering. It was formed based on the cultivation and physique of a Heavenly Venerate. Even if he was a 9th Heaven Celestial King, he couldn't casually use it, and he would have to pay a huge price. But this time, for the sake of Ling Han, he didn't hesitate to harm himself. I remembered wrong. Yu Wudi wasn't killed by the main character, so the purple gold divine rod isn't in the main character's hands. I'll make a correction here. Among the Empress and Hu Niu, one of their celestial artifacts was originally refined from the purple gold divine rod, but now it naturally isn't. I can't change the previous content, because the chapter has been locked. Because it doesn't affect reading, there's only a small flaw, and I'll explain it here. Chapter 2542. To be able to become an Empyrean, which one of them wasn't an eternally rare genius who walked their own path? Of course, Heavenly Venerate Feng Qing was the same. The mystic art he had created was called the Fish Dragon art. The name was not domineering, but it implied that it was like a fish leaping over the dragon gate, transforming from a mortal to a dragon. But the celestial venerables were already supreme existences. If they were to leap through the dragon's gate, just how powerful would they become? Unthinkable, just like how the origin-born heavenly venerable had created the indestructible heaven scroll. This fish dragon technique was a secret technique that belonged to the heavenly venerable Feng Qing. The difference was that the indestructible heaven scroll could be cultivated by cultivators of different cultivation levels, but the fish dragon technique could not. It was true that Empyreans were weaker than others, but it did not mean that every Empyrean was a good teacher. Once the fish dragon technique was activated, the Imperial Void Immortal King's aura changed immediately. His entire body was shrouded in purple light, exuding an unparalleled domineering aura as he charged toward Ling Han. Quang, the heavenly tribulation was also formed at the right time, and it fell toward Ling Han. The crux of the matter was that the Imperial Void Immortal King had attacked first. In other words, at least in this strike, the heavens and the earth didn't think that the Imperial Void Immortal King was interfering with Ling Han's tribulation, and it wouldn't target him. For a moment, it was equivalent to 2 great powerhouses joining hands to deal with Ling Han. This attack was too terrifying. The Imperial Void Immortal King's battle prowess soared to the peak of the fifth firmament under the augmentation of the fish dragon art. The heavenly tribulation this time was also incomparably violent, close to the sixth firmament. Ling Han laughed heartily. He didn't seem to care at all. He continued with his fist and sword. He had the heart of invincibility. He slashed out with his sword towards the Imperial Void Immortal King, while his left hand still clenched into a fist and punched towards the heavenly tribulation. Boom! A loud noise was heard, and Ling Han staggered a few steps back. However, he laughed out loud, and his state of mind became even more perfect. His fists and sword moved at the same time, and he felt extremely satisfied. His martial Dao finally had an embryonic form, the Xing-Yi perfection. So what if it's a heavenly tribulation? On my own body, I'm heaven and earth. Ling Han continued to gain enlightenment. His fist technique was advancing towards perfection, and so was his sword technique. His Dao was not divided into fists or swords. It was just a way to display his power. The root of it was that he had an invincible heart and a will to pursue freedom, which turned into his own Dao. Boom! The heavenly tribulation was rampaging, but the Imperial Void Celestial King did not make a move. He merely continued to retreat. He did not dare to easily involve himself in the heavenly tribulation. The heavenly tribulation was too terrifying, and it made his heart palpitate. Once he was about to undergo the heavenly tribulation, would he still be able to interfere with Ling Han? However, even though he had retreated, Ling Han didn't plan to let him go. He leaped and chased after him, his divine demon sword slashing endlessly. With each strike, he would coordinate with the suppression of the celestial tool, thus allowing the divine demon sword to draw out some of its essence. In this way, he would steal the celestial metal from the ancient bell. This was naturally very slow, but it was effective. However, the heavenly tribulation really was extremely terrifying. Ling Han was injured, immortal king blood splashing everywhere. After all, this was the fiery frost plane. The might of the heavenly tribulation was too overbearing. It gave Ling Han a headache. However, he did not withdraw from this state. Instead, he tried his best to enrich his Dao. Although he could continue to perfect it in the future, he had comprehended it suddenly this time, so his progress was undoubtedly the fastest. If he missed this opportunity, he could only take it slow in the future. The formation of a martial art cultivation technique was a long process in the first place. The Imperial Void Celestial King was extremely gloomy. It was clearly Ling Han who was undergoing the heavenly tribulation, but he was being suppressed. What kind of person was there? The heavenly tribulation was so violent, but he didn't properly undergo it, and actually wanted to be distracted? Weren't you afraid of being struck to death by the heavenly tribulation? Logically speaking, one had to be careful when undergoing the heavenly tribulation, fearing that others would interfere and be doomed eternally. However, Ling Han took the initiative to attack others. He was practically a freak. He had no fighting spirit. Under the suppression of his cultivation level, he couldn't do anything to Ling Han at all. Fight my ass. When he went out, he could just stretch out his hand and suppress Ling Han. Why did he need to struggle here? But he wanted to leave, but Ling Han wouldn't let him. That was because he hadn't completely absorbed the essence of the ancient bell. How could Ling Han be willing to let the Imperial Void Celestial King go? After this time, would the Imperial Void Celestial King still agree to a fair battle with Ling Han in the Nine Deaths formation? It was impossible. Hence, the next time he wanted to extract the divine metal essence of the ancient bell, he would have to wait until Ling Han became a ninth heaven celestial king. The time was too long. Why are you running? The battle isn't over yet, Ling Han said. Feng Qing's lineage had gone too far. It was rare to encounter such a good opportunity, so he naturally wouldn't let the Imperial Void Celestial King go. The Imperial Void Celestial King was speechless. He gritted his teeth, but was determined not to make a move. He couldn't afford to provoke this kind of heavenly tribulation. What was more terrifying was that the heavenly tribulation wouldn't be affected by the Nine Deaths formation. If it landed on him, it would definitely be a ninth heaven, but his cultivation level was suppressed by the Great Formation, and he was only a third heaven. Wasn't this courting death? It was precisely because he thought of this that he was extremely determined not to make a move and only parry. He would endure. After enduring for a day, he would break through with all his strength. In the fiery frost plain, the duration of the heavenly tribulation was 1 day. Ling Han also knew this, and a smile appeared on his face. If there was 1 day, it would be enough to let the divine demon sword eat its fill. 1 day passed, and the heavenly tribulation could only helplessly dissipate. No matter what plane it was, there would always be rules to follow, unlike madness, which could do as it pleased after transforming into a plane. The Imperial Void Celestial King erupted again. With the fish dragon technique activated, he broke through with all his strength. This time, even Ling Han couldn't stop him. After all, the other was one of the strongest celestial kings in the history of the celestial realm, so his battle prowess was naturally powerful. He stopped and revealed a smile. He had gained too much from this battle. Firstly, his heart of martial art had finally reached great accomplishment, and formed his own Tao. Secondly, the divine demon sword had extracted at least 70% of the essence of the ancient bell, and its power had increased greatly. He also walked out of the formation, and saw that Xiaoying Xiong and the others were all waiting outside, and the Imperial Void Celestial King had already recovered his calm expression, and the aura of a ninth heaven Celestial King surged, as if he could lose control at any moment and attack. The large black dog stood on its hind legs beside Ling Han and placed a paw on Ling Han's shoulder. It was as if this brat was under the protection of Grandpa Dog, so who would dare to make a move against him? The Imperial Void Celestial King frowned. He naturally wasn't afraid of the large black dog, but the large black dog had also cultivated with a celestial venerable in the past, so how could his battle prowess be underestimated? With him protecting Ling Han, the possibility of him succeeding was too low, close to impossible. Was it so difficult to kill a junior in the third heaven? Let's go, Gu He said. They didn't enter the formation to watch the battle, and that was to save face for Ling Han and the Imperial Void Celestial King. Otherwise, no matter who lost, they would lose face, and perhaps they wouldn't have the face to go to the ancient ruins again. But opening the ancient ruins required enough Super Emperor stars, and what if there weren't enough people? Everyone set out, and the Imperial Void Celestial King's expression flickered. He kept racking his brain, thinking about how to kill Ling Han. Ling Han couldn't help but think that he definitely had the halo of a star of calamity, and he hadn't exposed his identity at all, yet he was still in conflict with the Imperial Void Celestial King. Everyone set out, and after 3 years, they finally arrived at their destination. This was a gloomy valley, filled with miasma. This miasma was extremely poisonous, and even celestial kings couldn't resist it for a long time, requiring the use of alchemical pills. Gu He and the others had long since prepared and distributed the alchemical pills to everyone. Ling Han didn't directly consume it but first carefully examined it. With his eyesight as a 5-star alchemist, he could easily distinguish whether there was anything wrong with this alchemical pill or not. No problem. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 2543. He, the Empress, and the large black dog all consumed alchemical pills, but Wally didn't. He wasn't a true life form, and this kind of poison was ineffective on him. Everyone naturally had their own methods to verify the authenticity of the alchemical pills, and soon, everyone had consumed the antidote. They continued to advance. There were no other life forms here, and it was an absolute land of death. No one spoke. Under the lead of Gu He and the others, they soon arrived at the end of the valley. A large door appeared here, embedded in the mountain wall. Can't we directly blast open the mountain wall? Someone asked. Clearly, this door required the living blood of a Super Emperor star to open, but how could this mountain wall block the mighty power of so many celestial kings? Did they think that there were heavenly venerables everywhere? Miao Hua shook his head. The ancient site isn't built inside the mountain. These 2 large doors are similar to a teleportation gate and are connected to an alternate space. Everyone nodded. Then there was no other way, and they could only enter from the door. They all came to the door and then cut their fingers, smearing their blood on the door. As streaks of blood were smeared on, the door shone with a strange light, and very soon, the door actually became transparent. As it turned out, the door wasn't open, but had instead become transparent and then disappeared. Everyone had bled, but the door didn't completely disappear, and there was still that layer, just a sliver. If there's one more portion of living blood, the door will disappear, Gu He said. Then I'll drip another portion, Lu Hao said. Miao Hua shook his head. It's no use. One person can only be counted once, and it's the same no matter how much. The others thought for a moment, and then nodded. If that wasn't the case, there was no need to call so many people. One person could slowly bleed, and it wouldn't be blood essence. Then what do we do? Everyone frowned. They had thought that there were enough people, but there was still one missing. Were they going back just like that? They were unwilling, but what could they do? I think I can help you all. At this moment, a voice suddenly rang out. Everyone was startled and they all looked to the left. Behind a huge rock, a beautiful woman walked out. Her figure was extremely tall, not inferior to the men, and her jade neck was long and slender, snow-white and smooth like a swan, noble and elegant. And her figure was also extremely alluring, outlined by a moon-white tight dress. Every curve made one's heart sway. Her body was wrapped with 5 colors, indicating that she was a 5th heaven celestial king. Who are you? Gu He asked in a heavy voice. Although this female immortal king was extremely beautiful, how could he be moved so easily? Most importantly, there was also an empress whose beauty was unparalleled in both ancient and modern times. After getting used to seeing such absolute beauty, would he still be moved by other beauties? This female immortal king was slightly taken aback. She was filled with confidence in her own charm, but Gu He was actually so calm and collected. This caused her to find it somewhat hard to accept. However, of course, she would not be so careless. She showed her thoughts on her face and smiled as she said, "My name is Lu Yufei, and just like everyone else, I want to enter this ancient historical remnant. However, I never thought that I would need the blood of so many Super Emperor stars to open it." Of Clan, Emperor Shao, and Emperor Star, and, you're also a Super Emperor Star? Luo Yangqiu asked. Lu Yufei smiled. I'll answer them one by one. First of all, I'm a Super Emperor Star. Otherwise, why would I say that I can help you all? Second, Lord He Feng failed to become a heavenly venerate and died. It's not a big secret. Those who are interested can certainly find clues from ancient records and deduce the location of his immortal mansion. The original owner of this cave dwelling was He Feng, Immortal King. Is that it? Everyone looked at each other. Naturally, they would not believe her so easily. However, there were 2 Stage 9 Celestial Kings in their group, and most of the others were Stage 6 Celestial Kings. How could they be afraid of her? I only wish to obtain opportunities together with everyone. I believe that all of you wouldn't mind having one more person, right? After all, we need so many people to open the door. Most importantly, everyone can get a copy of the handwritten note of Immortal King, He Feng, breaking through to the heavenly paragon realm. Lu Yufei said persuasively. These words were indeed very reasonable. An Immortal King's handwritten note could be copied by anyone. It wasn't like a heavenly material or earthly treasure, where one more person meant one less share. You are welcome to join us. Gu He looked around everyone's faces, and seeing that the majority of them had nodded, he extended an invitation to Lu Yufei on behalf of everyone. Lu Yufei walked over gracefully, her bearing elegant and enchanting. If it wasn't for the Empress, she would definitely be filled with a fatal attraction. Even celestial kings would be moved. It was a pity that her charm had been greatly reduced in comparison to him. She took another look at the Empress. This kind of exquisite beauty caused even her heart to beat faster. When she arrived at the door, she cut her finger, and a few drops of blood dripped out. Instantly, the door that had been close to transparent in the first place completely faded, revealing a pitch-black passageway. Sure enough, she was also a Stage 9 Celestial King. Everyone was surprised. It was naturally a piece of cake for a Stage 9 Celestial King to enter the Martial Arts Academy, so why didn't this woman enter the #1 martial arts academy in the world? However, it was also possible that she was actually a student of the Martial Arts Academy. It was just that she was very low-key, and not many people knew of her existence. No one asked. Everyone had their own secrets, and it would not be appropriate to ask rashly. Let's go. Everyone was skilled and bold, and they all stepped in. When they all entered, the door became solid again from its transparent state, and soon returned to its original appearance. 3 days later, a man walked in with large strides, 9 rays of light entwined around his body. Lu Yufei, do you think that just because you stole this lord's keepsake, this lord can't enter here? This man smirked coldly. I've been so good to you, yet you only came for the secret inheritance of my He clan's ancestor and the experience of a heavenly venerate. This lord will definitely make you pay the price. He stretched out a hand and made a cut, and a drop of blood landed on the door. This door that required the blood of many stage 9 celestial kings to open suddenly became transparent, and easily opened. I'm a descendant of the He clan, and my bloodline can naturally open this abode. However, this celestial king looked at the dark passageway like a giant mouth that wanted to swallow all who entered. It's about time. Though the ancestor has fallen, he has other arrangements. Using his own blood essence to nourish the origin return to 1 fruit, and then watering it with the blood of a dozen or so celestial kings from stage 9 celestial kings, it will completely ripen. Lu Yufei, you thought that you got information about the origin return to 1 fruit from this lord, but you didn't know that this lord was testing you on purpose. If you had treated this lord wholeheartedly, this lord would not have treated you unfairly. However, since you chose to betray me, then offer up all your blood essence to help this lord take the final step. This is my He clan's treasure, and only the He clan can obtain such a fortuitous opportunity. No one can take it away. This celestial king strode forward and entered the passageway. Behind him, the door closed again, and streams of blood flowed out, forming the shape of a ghost's face. It was grinning, and it was filled with a terrifying aura. Reading on a mobile phone. Chapter 2544. Ling Han and the others strode forward. As they walked, the surroundings became brighter. It wasn't the kind of bright day. Instead, it was as if they were strolling in the starry sky. In the distance, there were stars that emitted faint starlight. Although it was weak, there were so many of them that it was enough to light up this part of the world. They wanted to walk to either side, but they found that they were still in the same passageway. They couldn't split up, and the starlight scenes were just illusions. Looking up, there was the starry sky. Looking down, there was still the starry sky. It was very easy to lose one's sense of direction here. If it weren't for the fact that they would run into walls on both sides, they might really not know where to go as they walked. No one said anything. Everyone was very cautious. Although there was no danger at the moment, who would believe that there was no danger in an ancient site? Even the Imperial Void Celestial King didn't dare to be careless. Although he stood at the peak of the Celestial King realm and could be ranked in the top 3 in the Celestial realm, this was the fiery frost plane. There were definitely many Celestial Kings that could stand shoulder to shoulder with him or even surpass him. Moreover, it was said that He Feng already had the qualifications to become an Empyrean, so he was definitely stronger than him. Although the Celestial King was dead, the means he left behind could not be underestimated. It was better to be safe than sorry. He would rather be alarmed than lose the Jing province due to carelessness. The large black dog was also constantly maintaining an attacking stance. His battle prowess was slightly inferior to the Imperial Void Celestial King, but he was more sensitive to danger. This was what a thief would do. The despicable dog frowned and whispered, "Lord Dog has a bad premonition." Jinx. Ling Han shook his head, but his attention was highly focused. If the large black dog said that he sensed something amiss, then he definitely wasn't being timid. Rather, he must have truly sensed something. Vari, I'm counting on you. Ling Han and the large black dog both pushed Wally to the front. This guy was the crystallization of several hundred epochs in a plane. Although he wasn't good at battle, he was practically undying. It was because it could fuse and recover like immortal metal, just that it was far from being as sturdy as immortal metal. Therefore, he was a very good meat shield. Wally was stunned. Why are you guys hiding behind me? I'm not a battle type. Ling Han and the large black dog both smiled, and didn't reply. As he walked, he suddenly saw a huge beast running towards him. In the beginning, no one took it to heart, thinking that it was just an illusion. After all, the beast was running over from an endless distance. However, as it got closer and closer, everyone was astonished. This huge beast was wrapped in starlight and emitted an intense light. Its ferocious aura was almost overwhelming, but it did not seem fake. The great beast was like a tiger, but its body was covered in glowing lumps. It looked extremely disgusting. It carried a baleful aura as it pounced over. Everyone couldn't help but raise their hands to meet the attack. However, after one strike, they realized that it was indeed fake. It was just a light effect, but it was extremely realistic. They couldn't help but laugh at themselves. A group of celestial kings, and a super emperor star at that, had actually been tricked by an illusion. In just a short while, another great beast pounced out from the depths of the starry sky and launched an attack. However, it was still a phantom, which gave everyone a false alarm. Then, the third great beast appeared. Everyone was shocked twice in a row and became a little lax. However, when the large beast pounced on them, everyone's expressions changed slightly. This time, it was real. Humph! The imperial void celestial king snorted softly. 2 streams of air shot out from his nostrils, transforming into a boundless shockwave. With a purr, this great beast was shattered into pieces. It's really hard to tell whether it's real or fake, Luo Yangqiu said. However, its battle prowess is only SOSO, Miao Hua said proudly. Don't be careless. There might be even stronger beings, Gu Hui warned. They advanced, and the great beasts continued to appear. Some were real and some were fake. The Imperial Void Celestial King did not attack all the time. He was not these people's bodyguard, so he naturally did not have such an obligation. However, everyone was strong enough, and the great beasts here only had the battle prowess of a 5th heaven celestial king. They were very strong, but they were not strong enough to pose too much of a threat to anyone. Of course, the great beasts were sometimes real and sometimes fake. This caused their nerves to unknowingly become tense. After all, even a 9th heaven celestial king would not dare to be attacked by a 5th heaven celestial king without any defense. Apart from Wali and Tianxing, if Ling Han could raise the level of the indestructible heaven scroll, he would also have this kind of ability. After walking for 3 days, even the Imperial Void Celestial King showed a hint of exhaustion. This was not because he had expended a large amount of source power, but rather because of a kind of emotional agitation. How long would this situation continue? They could only passively defend, and could not actively attack. This was a situation that these prodigies had never encountered before. This made them extremely displeased, and it also affected their emotions. However, this passageway seemed to have no end. After another few days, there was still no sign of them walking out of it. Was this a labyrinth? Ling Han and the large black dog were both like Wali. When it came to analysis and calculation, if he said that he was second, no one would dare to say that they were first. Wali looked at the two of them in confusion. There was a confused expression on his face. What do you mean by looking at me like this? Are we taking a detour? Ling Han asked. At times, Wali would be extremely dazed again. Wali immediately said, Up until now, we have walked through a total of 17 spatial nodes. According to my estimation, the probability of us taking a detour is 31%. However, whether it is true or not, we still need to observe more to know. Is there a way to find the correct way out? Ling Han asked. We need to observe more. Wali still said the same thing. Then there was no other way. They could only take more detours. Ling Han thought for a moment and said, Is there a way to detect the authenticity of those great beasts in advance? Wali nodded. Why didn't you say so earlier? Ling Han sighed. You didn't ask. Wali's expression was full of innocence. Moreover, I think that you are deliberately training your abilities in certain areas. Forget it. You'd better tell us how to distinguish the authenticity of these great beasts. Ling Han decided not to argue with him anymore. Wali did not speak, but released a circle of green light from his body. It shot out in all directions. This was a circular ripple, and a great beast just happened to be attacking. The ripples swept past, and there was no change. "This is a fake," Wally said. As expected, when the great beast pounced over, it immediately disappeared. Everyone was shocked, and they walked towards Wally. Originally, they had agreed to let Wally come along because of Ling Han's strong request. Otherwise, why would someone who was not from a Super Emperor star come? However, now that Wally had revealed his abilities, everyone immediately looked at him in a different light. "What ability is this?" Everyone was curious. Wally was calm and explained, "You determine the strength of a living being through its aura, and whether it is a living being or not, it is through the fire of life. However, these can all be faked. I'm different. I use biological waves, which can more accurately determine the strength of living beings, and also determine their strength." Everyone didn't quite understand. "What do you mean by you? Are you different from us? You're a battle soldier, right?" Lu Yufei suddenly said. Chapter 25:45. Before Ling Han could stop him in time, he saw Vale nod and say, "Yes." This guy didn't understand at all. He was lying. Everyone gasped in surprise. Although they knew about planes that focused on technology and had seen battle soldiers before, it was the first time they had seen one that looked like a person, like Wall. Lu Yufei's eyes lit up, and she looked at Wall for a while before looking away. "This little girl is not simple. She doesn't have any good intentions," the large black dog whispered into Ling Han's ear. Ling Han nodded. Lu Yufei's timing was too coincidental. She had come earlier, but this was probably her first time here. Moreover, the information she had was wrong. She did not know that the living blood of many Super Emperor stars was needed to open the door. Perhaps she had discovered Ling Han and the others when she was about to leave. Otherwise, with the poisonous miasma outside, would she have so many antidotes? At the very least, Ling Han did not know that this ancient historical remnant belonged to Celestial King He Feng, but Lu Yufei was able to tell him so easily. She definitely had more information than Ling Han, and perhaps even more than Xiaoying Xiong and the others. Wall continuously released green ripples that spread into the distance in an orderly manner. A large beast appeared, but after the ripples swept past, there were obvious twists and turns. "It's true," Wall said. "He did things by the book. Since he had said that he would determine whether these large beasts were real or fake, he would carry out his orders to the letter. He did not care what others thought. When the large beast attacked, everyone attacked. Pung! This large beast was instantly blasted apart. It was indeed real. Now, everyone no longer had any doubts about Wall's abilities. "Aren't battle soldiers all war machines?" Su Huan asked. He was also a Super Emperor star, and his cultivation had reached the 6th heaven. Wall explained, "I'm not a battle type, but an analytical type." Ling Han hurriedly laughed. Wall could not hide any secrets at all, and he would answer whatever people asked. If they knew more of Wall's abilities, they might have evil intentions, and they might even find out that they were the ones who had stolen the heavenly-born cave abode. The large black dog did the same. He directly used his paw to seal Wall's mouth. "Heh, is there something you can't see?" the Imperial Void Celestial King asked calmly. He stretched out a hand to grab the large black dog. How could a 9th Firmament Immortal King take action be ordinary? The large black dog roared angrily, "Imperial Void Brat, do you think Grandpa Dog is afraid of you?" It opened its mouth and spat out a black light. There were countless runes floating about, causing everyone to feel a chill from the bottom of their hearts. The light was too terrifying. The Imperial Void Immortal King was fearless. Everyone was from the Celestial Realm, and in the Celestial Realm, he was one of the top existences in the 9 heavens. Countless stars flickered on his big hand, as if he had also turned into a big beast. Boom, boom, boom. After exchanging a few blows, the large black dog was forced to retreat. His strength was still inferior to that of the Royal Void Celestial King. "Since you are an analytics-type battle weapon, why don't you give it to me? What is it that I am lacking that I am unable to break through to the Heavenly Venerable Realm?" Imperial Void Immortal King asked Wall. In fact, he didn't have too much hope. The other party wasn't a Celestial Venerable, so how could he guide him? However, Wall interrupted him and said, "I need a reward." The Imperial Void Immortal King laughed involuntarily. "Do you really think that you can help me?" Wall nodded. "At the very least, I can point out your flaws." The Imperial Void Immortal King couldn't help but be tempted. He wasn't afraid that Wall would deceive him. He could suppress his opponent with a flip of his hand. He nodded slowly. "What do you want?" "Immortal metal, plain scroll, anything is fine," Wall replied casually. The Imperial Void Immortal King couldn't help but grimace. "What, anything?" There wasn't much immortal metal in a plane, especially after heavenly venerables emerged. They were all used to upgrade the devouring metal, so how much immortal metal would there be left? Even though he was a 9th Firmament Immortal King, he had only obtained 17 pieces of immortal metal. As for the plain scroll, even he didn't know what it was. "One piece of immortal metal for one question," Wall continued. This involved a heavenly venerable, so the price was too high. He naturally had to sell it for a high price. Although the Imperial Void Immortal King was tempted, he didn't have any immortal metal in his hands. Did he have to shatter the ancient bell? However, if he could obtain the method to break through to Heavenly Venerable from Wall, then the ancient bell wouldn't be important to him anymore. So what if he gave it up? All right. He took out the ancient bell and threw it towards Wall. "This is my treasure artifact. It's made from a total of 17 types of immortal metal. As long as your answer satisfies me, I can give it to you. However, if you deceive me, then don't blame me for being impolite." Wall didn't care at all. His eyes glowed with green light as he glanced at the ancient bell. He immediately shook his head. "This immortal metal isn't pure. The essence is pitifully little. At most, it can be used as 5 pieces of immortal metal." The Imperial Void Immortal King was stunned. How could it not be pure? These 17 pieces of immortal metal were all smelted by him. How could he not know whether they were pure or not? Furthermore, how could impure immortal metal have such great power? Wasn't this a joke? "As expected, you are deceiving me," he said coldly. Just like he said, how could a mere battle tool possibly know how to break through to Heavenly Venerable? He was deceiving him. Ling Han was secretly guilty. He naturally knew what was going on. It was because he had used the Divine Demon Sword to extract the ancient bell's essence of immortal metal previously, which was why the ancient bell had become impure. If the Imperial Void Immortal King knew what was going on, he would probably fight him to the death. The Imperial Void Immortal King brazenly moved, slapping towards Wall. This was only a battle tool. So what if he killed it? Even if it was reported to the Academy, he wouldn't be afraid. It wasn't like killing Ling Han or the others. In that case, he would have to silence them. Otherwise, as long as one of them returned and reported it to the Academy, even if Heavenly Venerable Feng Qing appeared, it would be useless. He would definitely have to pay with his life. Without rules, nothing could be accomplished. No one could be an exception. He naturally didn't know that Wall was actually also a student of the Academy. This was Heavenly Venerable Zhou Heng's arrangement. Otherwise, he would have to first consider before making a move. How frightening was a 9th Heaven Celestial King? With a single strike, Wall was instantly turned into dust. Ling Han, the large black dog, and the Empress didn't have any intention of making a move. They knew that Wall's life force was incredibly strong. Previously, he had been shattered by the large black dog, but hadn't he still recovered? The crystallization of several hundred epochs in a plane couldn't possibly be so weak. Humph! The Imperial Void Immortal King smirked coldly. He flicked his sleeves, and even cast a baleful glance at Ling Han and the large black dog. The warning intent was clear. This was the consequence of making him unhappy. But Xiao Yingxiong and the others immediately cried out in surprise. They saw that the fragments of Wall seemed to have a life of their own, gathering in one direction. Then, they fused together, turning into a massive ball. Then they grew out a hand, a leg, and a head. In the blink of an eye, Wall reappeared. Seeing this scene, even the Imperial Void Immortal King was stunned. He definitely hadn't thought that the person he had personally killed could actually be revived. Wall stared at the Imperial Void Immortal King. Red light shot out from his eyes. This was filled with destructive power, and its speed was incredibly fast. In an instant, it struck the Imperial Void Immortal King. Woo! The Imperial Void Immortal King released a muffled humph. Chapter 2546. A dead person coming back to life and unleashing a powerful attack. Even the Imperial Void Celestial King could not imagine such a scene. Moreover, the speed of the red light was too fast, so he was hit. 2 beams of light struck his chest, and immediately, charred smoke rose. The Imperial Void Celestial King could not help but retreat. He lowered his head and saw that 2 holes had been burned into his clothes, and 2 more charred holes had appeared on his stomach. The beams went straight into his stomach and almost pierced through him. Damn! He charged at Wall, his killing intent instantly blazing. Die! He attacked again. Ping! The hateful attack of a 9th Heaven Celestial King was extremely terrifying, and Wall was instantly shattered again. However, countless fragments fused together, and Wall was about to come back to life. You still want to try? The Imperial Void Celestial King sneered, and added another attack. Pung! Wall, who was still fusing together, exploded again. The Imperial Void Celestial King attacked again, and before Wall could reform into a human form, he had already destroyed him. However, if Wall was so easy to deal with, he would not be qualified to be the pride of a plane. The fragments no longer gathered in one direction, but 10. This was something that even the Imperial Void Celestial King did not expect. Although he had destroyed 7 of them in an instant, there were still 3 that formed, and they transformed into 3 miniature walls. At the same time, red light shot out from their eyes. The Imperial Void Celestial King dodged, but the route he dodged was actually within Wall's expectations. Only one of the beams missed, while the other 2 shot straight at him. Woo! Even the Imperial Void Celestial King could not help but cry out in pain. He was furious, and boundless celestial light burst forth from his body. Pung! The 3 miniature walls were instantly shattered. However, after this, 100 miniature walls formed at the same time, and each of them was extremely far away from each other. Even a 9th Heaven Celestial King could not kill all of them in one go. Shio shio shio. Red light flashed wildly. The Imperial Void Celestial King did not dare to be careless, and had to deal with them with all his strength. Wall's strength seems to have increased greatly, Ling Han said to the large black dog. The large black dog nodded. His recovery speed has become much faster, and his attacks have also become many times more powerful. Even I have to put in more effort to suppress him. This damn dog simply loved to boast. One must know that it was slightly inferior to the Imperial Void Immortal King. But now, even the Imperial Void Immortal King was in such a sorry state. If it was this damn dog, it would definitely be at a greater disadvantage. Ling Han laughed. This guy has also refined a planar scroll that's over 1,000,000 years old. It would be strange if his strength didn't increase greatly. The planar plane scroll could allow a mortal to become an Empyrean. Although this Empyrean could only be said to be a representative of the heavens and earth, and the heavens and earth could take back their power at any time, as long as they remained in this position, their power would be at the genuine Empyrean level. Wally said that he needed 100 million years to digest the plane scroll. Now that more than 1,000,000 years had passed, he should have refined 1% of it. 1/100th of an Empyrean's strength wasn't impressive. It wasn't enough to make a 9th Firmament Immortal King suffer. Of course, Wally was definitely unable to perfectly absorb the power. However, even if he only had 1,000th or 10,000th of a Heavenly Venerate's might, he could still pose a threat to a 9th Firmament Immortal Monarch. Indeed, Wally's defenses weren't high, and he could be easily shattered by Celestial Kings. However, his offensive prowess was similarly astonishing. Even the Imperial Void Immortal King couldn't completely block his attacks. Coupled with his recovery ability, which Celestial King wouldn't have a headache dealing with. Even when the Imperial Void Immortal King fought against Ji Wuming in his last life, he didn't have as much trouble fighting against Wally. In a sense, Wally was the same as innate nature. Both of them possessed terrifying recovery ability. Even a 9th Firmament Celestial King couldn't do anything about it. What plain scroll? The large black dog asked. He still didn't know that such a good thing existed. Ling Han gave a simple explanation, and the large black dog's eyes instantly lit up. Quick, take it out and give it to me. Stop fooling around. Ling Han naturally wouldn't agree. If he lent it to the large black dog, it would be like throwing a meat bun at a dog. It would be a one-way trip. The large black dog looked at Wally enviously and murmured, "Should I go to that next plane and transform myself into a battle dog?" Ling Han rolled his eyes at him. The Imperial Void Immortal King was still fighting against Wally. From the looks of it, he had the upper hand, and he had shattered Wally countless times. However, no matter how many times Wally was destroyed, the Imperial Void Immortal King would be able to rapidly regenerate his body, and he was completely unharmed. Moreover, Wally's attacks couldn't be underestimated either. They had also caused significant injuries to the Imperial Void Immortal King. Right now, the Imperial Void Immortal King really wanted to stop the battle, but he was the one who had started the battle, so he couldn't bring himself to do so. Xiao Xiong and the others naturally understood this, and they all tried to mediate the battle, giving the Imperial Void Immortal King a way out. The battle stopped, and the Imperial Void Immortal King was furious. He felt that his face was slightly red, and he felt like exploding. A few days ago, when he was fighting against Ling Han, he had suffered a crushing defeat. At that time, he still had the excuse that it was because the 9 Extremes formation had suppressed his cultivation level, which gave Ling Han an opportunity to take advantage of him. But now, he was in his peak condition, yet not only was he unable to do anything to Wally, but he was even in pain from Wally's attacks. This was truly humiliating. He didn't have the nerve to speak, and he remained silent with a dark expression. However, his desire to become a heavenly venerate became even stronger. Only by becoming a heavenly venerate would one truly be able to escape the control of heaven and earth and surpass the regulations. Otherwise, he would be restricted. For example, the reason why Tianxing and Wally couldn't be killed was because their defenses and recovery abilities were at the peak of the regulations, and only the power of a heavenly venerate could break through them. Wally was still expressionless. Although he had caused a 9th Heaven Celestial King to feel extremely helpless and depressed, he didn't look pleased at all. Meanwhile, Xiao Xiong and the others were all stunned, and their opinion of Wally naturally became much higher. This guy's freakish talent was comparable to Tianxing's. Ling Han suddenly had a strange thought. If Wally and Tianxing were to fight, what would the result be? They would probably fight until the end of time without any result, the large black dog said. Then he changed the topic and said, "Brat, we have to quickly cultivate the indestructible heaven scroll to the peak. Otherwise, our physiques will be surpassed by others." You've also cultivated the indestructible heaven scroll? Ling Han was surprised. Nonsense, I cultivated it even earlier than you, the large black dog said proudly. It's just that my bloodline was incompatible before, and my achievements were limited. Later, although I was forced to undergo a great nirvana, I obtained a drop of blood essence from a heavenly venerate as a foundation. Thus, I have no difficulty in cultivating the indestructible heaven scroll now. He paused. Come to think of it, Grandpa Dog is your ancestor. Scram. Ling Han wanted to give him the middle finger, but he immediately asked in surprise, "Then why is my bloodline compatible?" He was curious why the Black Tower would find him. One had to know that in his last life, he was only strong in alchemy, and not just a little strong at that. His talent in martial art wasn't outstanding, and he couldn't even compare to the heavenly phoenix Divine Maiden. Stupid! The large black dog snorted. Because you have the bloodline of the heavenly venerate born by fate. Impossible! Ling Han was shocked. Could it be that he was the descendant of Yun? Stupid! The large black dog shook his head. Could it be that Lord Heavenly Venerate doesn't have cousins? Although there are some differences, there is a resonance of bloodline? Otherwise, why do you think the Tower of Three Realms insisted on flying to that small world of yours? Ling Han nodded. Previously, that small world had already come to the ancient realm by splitting open the sky, and then became a small world again. Could it be that it was the doing of the Tower of Three Realms? What else? the large black dog countered. But why was it separated by several epochs? Ling Han asked again. Nonsense, the Tower of Three Realms was already heavily wounded in the first place, and transforming the lower realm into a small world to hide from the heavenly venerate's divine sense had already exhausted its power. It could only slowly recover its power. Later, you just happened to find it, and only then did it merge with you, the large black dog said seriously. Reading on a cell phone is more refreshing. Chapter 2548. However, the current situation of the battle was urgent, so the Imperial Void Immortal King didn't think too much about it and just charged forward with all his might. This was a small world created by the mighty power of a celestial king, but the area it covered was not small at all. They had advanced for 3 days, but they still had not reached the end. From the situation in the sky, the entire small world was like a cake, divided into 9 parts. The outside was big, the inside was small, and the 9 areas gathered together. And they were heading towards the central area. We still have about 2 more days of travel, everyone said while panting. Although the end was in sight, the ray of light figure was simply too big. Every step they took forward required them to kill countless enemies, so their speed was naturally extremely slow. They did not say any words of encouragement. If it was an immortal king or a super emperor star, they would not even have this much willpower. Then what qualifications did they have to reach this step and talk about becoming celestial lords? Everyone gritted their teeth. 2 days later, they finally reached the end of this region, the center of the entire world. There was a stone tablet covered with complicated patterns. Smear some blood on it and you can break this formation, Lu Yufei said. Another drop of blood, a thought suddenly welled up in Ling Han's mind. Because in the last section of the Immortal Path, it was said that there would be an opportunity that had not been seen since ancient times. In the end, countless immortal kings died, but in the end, such a monster was created. Could this be a trap too? Which one of those who had the qualifications to become a celestial lord wasn't a peerless hero? Could it be that they didn't give themselves a way out? Ji Wuming and Fire Hibiscus had the same expression on their faces. They were people who had personally experienced that battle. However, Xiaoing Xiong and the others did not have such misgivings. They smeared their blood on the stone tablet, causing it to emit a brilliant light. It's not enough, Lu Yufei urged. Everyone needs to drip a drop of blood, just like opening the door. Though Ling Han, the Empress, Ji Wuming, and the others were not very willing, the pressure they were under now was indeed too great, so they had no other choice. Otherwise, they could only retreat from this place. They cut their fingers and smeared their blood on it. The stone tablet grew brighter and brighter. When the last Empress smeared her blood on it, a pillar of light instantly shot up into the sky. It was incredibly bright. At the same time, all the light figures disappeared as if they had never existed. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. They were exhausted from the continuous battles. They sat down and rested, trying to recover to their peak condition as soon as possible. Although the Imperial Void Celestial King was the vanguard, a 9th Heaven Celestial King was too powerful. He and the large black dog were the first to recover. Then, he took out the ancient bell and started to study it. His expression changed greatly, because the Qiangu bell seemed to have suffered great damage. He could clearly sense that the immortal gold power was no longer boundless. What's going on? This thought flashed through the Imperial Void Celestial King's mind, and he suddenly stared at Ling Han. He instinctively felt that this should be related to Ling Han, because the celestial artifact in Ling Han's hand was forged with devouring metal. Was it you? He immediately stood up and scolded Ling Han. A 9th Firmament Immortal King could do anything they wanted. They could do as they pleased without any qualms. Ling Han picked his ears and ignored him. Imperial Void, this is Grandpa Dog's underling. If you have anything to say, tell Grandpa Dog. The large black dog immediately jumped out. At this moment, only he could oppose the Imperial Void Celestial King. The Imperial Void Immortal King originally wanted to flare up, but he suddenly suppressed his rage. The most important thing now was to obtain the origin return to one fruit. If he could become a celestial venerable, he could abandon everything else. Although it was not confirmed yet, he believed that the remaining 8 regions still required the blood of everyone to activate the stone tablets. Thus, now was not the time to turn hostile. Being able to become a 9th firmament immortal king, the Imperial Void Immortal King naturally did not lack patience. He sat down again, appearing calm and nonchalant. Can we directly go to the next region from here? If they walked from here, the destination of the 2 neighboring regions was only 5 kilometers away. It was very close. They were just about to walk to the 2 sides, but they did not walk very far before they saw the light of the stone tablet suddenly dim, and the figure of light reappeared. They retreated a few more steps, and the stone tablet lit up again, and the figure of light disappeared again. Could it be that they could not leave? But if they could not leave, how could they activate the formation eyes of the other 8 regions? Everyone looked at Lu Yufei. Lu Yufei said, every stone tablet needs to be guarded by a living person to maintain its operation. And we also cannot take shortcuts. With the trap set up by Celestial King He Feng, we must go around from the outside. Of course, this method was not absolutely effective. They believed that a Celestial Venerable would definitely be able to destroy it, but was there a need for a Celestial Venerable to come here? There was no Celestial Venerable among them, so there had to be someone left here. I need to be the guide, and the 2 seniors of the 9th heaven need to be responsible for opening the path. Thus, the 3 of us must walk to the end, Lu Yufei continued. I'll stay behind, Lu Hao said. When all 9 formation eyes were activated, the door leading to the center would open, and there would be the origin return to 1 fruit, as well as the insights of martial art that Celestial King He Feng had left behind. Thus, there was no disadvantage in staying here. On the contrary, they could also conserve their energy. Lu Hao stayed behind, and he sat beside the stone tablet. The others tried to leave, and sure enough, although they had walked a very long distance, the stone tablet was still releasing a pillar of light that soared into the sky, and did not show any signs of dimming. Lu Yufei was not wrong about this, at least. Ling Han and the others still tried, wanting to directly enter the 2 regions on the side from here, but they could not. It seemed like they could directly pass through, but there was an invisible wall separating them, and even the Imperial Void Celestial King and the large black dog could not pass through. This was a method that surpassed Celestial King tier, and this did not disappoint them. Instead, they were filled with anticipation. The stronger Celestial King He Feng was, the more precious the things he had left behind. They walked out of this region, and because there were no light figures blocking their way, their speed was very fast, and they left this region in about an hour. Now, they had 2 choices, enter the region on the left or the region on the right. Go clockwise, Lu Yufei said. Everyone listened. At least she had already proved that her understanding of the situation here was far greater than that of the others. Of course, no one would completely believe Lu Yufei. It was necessary to be on guard against others, and moreover, the 2 sides could not be said to understand each other at all. They walked clockwise, and entered the 2nd region. This place was filled with haze, and gales were blowing. They could be seen clearly with the naked eye. Numerous vortexes were spinning, and there were seals flashing in the center. Let's go. They stepped into the vortex. A gust of wind blew over, and apart from the Imperial Void Celestial King and the large black dog, everyone else was blown into the air, drifting backward. Peng, peng, peng. Everyone fell to the ground. The Imperial Void Celestial King and the large black dog both put up a light shield around them and fought fiercely against the gales, appearing very calm. Everyone entered this region again, and this time, they all activated their regulations to fight against the gales. This time, it was really like the 8 immortals crossing the sea, each displaying their own abilities. Celestial kings that were proficient in earth element regulations were the easiest to deal with. They directly made themselves incomparably heavy, so the gales could not move them, but those that cultivated other regulations could not, and could only activate their regulations to fight against the gales. This would undoubtedly consume their source power even faster, but there was no other way. They advanced with all their might. Fortunately, although the gales here were astonishingly strong, there were no existences like the light figures lying in ambush. Otherwise, it would really be difficult for them to advance. Chapter 2549. Whoosh, a large whirlwind drifted toward them. This whirlwind was extraordinarily large. Just the diameter of the whirlwind's eye was several thousand meters. The seal in the center was faintly discernible, and it exuded a terrifying aura. Everyone wanted to dodge, but their speed in the whirlwind was already slow, and the whirlwind was extraordinarily fast. It also covered a vast area, so how could they possibly dodge it? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. So what if they were ninth firmament immortal kings? They were easily swept up and sent flying. All of them crashed far away. Celestial King Imperial Void and the large black dog were fine, and they immediately steadied themselves, but the others could not. When the wind behind them blew, they were directly sent flying out of this area. Seeing this, Celestial King Imperial Void and the large black dog also retreated. Just the two of them were definitely not enough to activate the formation's eye. Even if they walked to the end, it would be useless. As expected of someone who can become a Celestial Venerable. Celestial King Imperial Void had to admit that he was impressed. He should not be a ninth heaven Celestial King, but a pseudo-Celestial Venerable. Just now, I seem to have been attacked by a dozen ninth heaven Celestial Kings at the same time. That's why I lost my footing. Come, we can't act rashly. Even Celestial King Imperial Void said so advancing with an iron head was clearly a foolish idea. Wall, can you calculate a safe route? Everyone looked at Wall, and even ninth heaven Celestial Kings had to bow their heads to him. Wall looked ahead, his eyes constantly flashing. It was clear that he was calculating, but after a long while, he shook his head. There's no pattern to follow. What should they do? Even Wall had no idea. Could it be that they could only rely on luck? It's impossible that there's no way, Lu Yufei said reluctantly. She had put in a lot of effort for this historical site. How could she be willing to retreat now? Of course there's a way. A voice suddenly sounded behind them. Everyone turned around and saw that a ninth heaven Celestial King had suddenly appeared behind them. He looked like a middle-aged man with an extraordinary bearing. This was very normal. To become a ninth heaven Celestial King, he was at least a monarch. Naturally, his aura was astonishing. Lu Yufei's expression immediately changed. She recognized who this person was. He Runhai. For the past 700,000 years, she had been with him. First, they had taken each other as a disciple, and then they had an ambiguous relationship. Their relationship was between lovers and disciples. You are. Imperial Void Immortal King clasped his hands and greeted the other party. He Runhai smiled faintly and didn't give Lu Yufei another look. He said, I am He Runhai. How everyone was slightly surprised. The owner of this ancient site was also surnamed He. Moreover, why did He Runhai want to open the historical remnant by himself? No matter what, he needed the blood of 10 or so Super Emperor stars. That's right, the owner of this ancient site is my ancestor. He Runhai didn't hide it and admitted it openly. True enough. However, first, it was Lu Yufei who understood the situation very well. Now, it was a direct descendant of He Feng Immortal King. The whole thing seemed to have become even more complicated. Only then did He Runhai say to Lu Yufei, Disciple, why didn't you greet your master before coming out? Lu Yufei's expression changed again and again. In the end, she smiled sweetly and said, Master, you are busy cultivating all day, trying to improve even further. How would your disciple dare to disturb you? These two are master and disciple. No wonder Lu Yufei was so familiar with the situation here. She must have gotten the information from He Feng's descendant. What ancient book? It was all a lie. However, no one had ever trusted Lu Yufei, so they didn't have much of a reaction. After all, they weren't close friends who needed to know each other's secrets. What did Brother He say? Are you going to chase us out? Imperial Void Immortal King asked. He Runhai smiled. If I wanted to chase you out, why would I show myself? If I didn't do anything, even if you all reached the ninth heaven, it would be useless even if you all worked together. However, to be honest, the method that my ancestor set up was to test the He family's descendants. Only by producing enough Super Emperor stars can we open the treasury he left behind. It's a pity that Super Emperor stars don't appear so easily. Not even one appears after several epochs. From what he said, it seemed that he wasn't a Super Emperor star. Without enough Super Emperor stars, can we activate the remaining steels? Su Huan asked. Don't worry, the number of Super Emperor stars needed to activate the formation core is less and less. It'll be fine as long as there are people on the side, He Runhai explained. Then please show us what you can do, Senior, everyone said. He Runhai nodded and took out a flag. The body of the flag was half broken, and it was stained red with blood. It gave off a mournful aura. Back then, my ancestor almost died in battle. After he was heavily injured, his subordinates wrapped his body in a flag and sent him back to the family. He only woke up after 300 million years. It was also that time that my ancestor obtained the mysteries of the celestial peaking realm and began to break through to the highest stage. I really don't know if that was a blessing or a misfortune. Later on, my ancestor became a quasi-celestial venerate, but all his efforts were in vain. He Runhai sighed, a look of pity on his face. Quasi-celestial venerates were actually quite powerful. Although the number of celestial venerates in the Frostfire plane was quite sizable, that was a gathering of the top experts of countless planes. There wouldn't be too many of them in each plane, even in high-grade planes. In that case, quasi-celestial venerates were indeed very powerful. The others couldn't say anything. After all, they were eyeing the relic of their ancestor. Fortunately, He Runhai only sighed ruefully. Very quickly, he pulled himself together and waved the flag. Instantly, it started to flutter. Stand behind me. With the Celestial King flag fluttering, you won't have to fear the hurricanes. He strode into the hurricane. Sure enough, the hurricanes automatically moved away when they touched the flag, as if they had eyes of their own. Everyone hurriedly followed him, taking shelter under the protection of the flag. They advanced steadily, and Ling Han looked to both sides. The hurricanes howled wildly, and everything here was extremely blurry. The visibility was less than 3 meters. Damn dog, take it easy. This He Runhai seems to be waiting for us here. Something feels off. Ling Han sent a voice transmission to the large black dog. Grandpa Dog knows. The large black dog's expression didn't change. However, I can tell that he indeed wants the relic left behind by our ancestor. Come, let's see who's the real devil. Moreover, the relationship between Lu Yufei and this master of hers seems to be quite strange. Ling Han nodded. He had the dimensional scroll, and he could take it out at a critical moment to scare people. At most, he would just summon the heavenly venerate tribulation. Who wouldn't be afraid? This area was originally impossible to pass through, but with He Feng's descendants using his battle flag as cover, it became the easiest part of the journey. Only a day later, they arrived at the end of this area. Sure enough, there was also a stone tablet here. Everyone wiped their blood on it, and the hurricanes immediately stopped. Although the haze had not disappeared, the visibility had greatly increased. Who's staying? Chapter 2550. Everyone looked at each other. In the end, Su Huan said, "Me." He sat cross-legged beside the stone tablet, like an old monk meditating, and no longer made any sound. Everyone nodded. Actually, the people who stayed here were the most relaxed. They didn't have to do anything. Was that really the case? Ling Han purposely didn't mention He Runhai. Instead, he let Wally record and analyze it. He had a special way to do it. After a while, Wally said, "According to my analysis of He Runhai's micro-expressions, he revealed a cold smile just now." He paused for a while, then asked, "Why did he sneer?" He did analyze it, but he didn't know why. The human heart was something that he could never understand. Ling Han nodded and said, "This guy is definitely hiding something from us." "Grandpa Dog is watching him," the big black dog said. Wally still didn't understand. Why did he sneer? Ling Han thought for a while and said, "If you're stronger than the enemy, but the enemy captured your lover and forced you to bind yourself, or else he would kill your lover, would you obey?" "Of course not." Wally shook his head. This is the simplest behavior judgment. If I also lose my ability to fight, then both my lover and I will die. I have to maintain my peak condition to be able to save my lover. Your answer is very reasonable, but also too reasonable. Ling Han shook his head. The reason why humans are humans and not machines is because they have feelings. When an evil person holds a knife to his lover's neck, many people will compromise. Wally was speechless. After a while, he asked, "Then what will you do?" Ling Han laughed. "I will avoid such a situation, so I don't need to answer this question." Humans also have a very bad habit, and that is to escape, Wally complained. While they were talking, they had already left the second area. They continued to move according to the clock and arrived at the third area. This place was densely covered with lightning, rumbling, and terrifying. "We have to force our way through," Runhai said. "Fortunately, its power is only around the fifth layer of the heavenly layer. If we pay a little more attention, we can deal with it." He had long since put away his war flag and strode into the lightning region. It was as if countless heavenly tribulations had fused together. Tens of thousands of feet-long lightning bolts continuously struck down with terrifying might. Everyone walked in one by one. Because of the terror of the heavenly tribulation, everyone instinctively felt nervous. Fortunately, the might of the lightning was as strong as Runhai had said. It was only at the level of a fifth firmament immortal king. This was not too difficult for them to match. Even though Ling Han, Ji Wuming, and company were only at the third firmament realm, their combat strength was just too powerful. All of them could fight fifth firmament immortal monarchs. The lightning was terrifying. It struck down like a heavenly spear or an earth sword. Xiao Yingxiong and company could ignore it, but third firmament immortal kings like Ling Han and Ji Wuming had to use all their strength to withstand it. Fortunately, the higher one's cultivation was, the more frequently they would be struck by the lightning. Thus, Xiao Yingxiong and company didn't have it much easier than Ling Han and company. Only the large black dog and the other two ninth-layer celestial kings were able to handle the lightning with ease. Ling Han unleashed his will and battled against the lightning. He had already walked his own path and formed his own unique will. It was just that he hadn't mastered it yet. Now, every battle was an opportunity for him to perfect his Tao. The stronger his opponent was, the greater his improvement would be. This was what it meant to be a genius. Difficulties wouldn't crush one's body, and they would only become stronger and stronger. Ling Han casually threw out a punch. It seemed simple, but it was just enough to extinguish the lightning. He didn't waste any energy at all. "Huh!" Wally's eyes lit up, and he scanned Ling Han from head to toe. He was an extremely special existence. As he walked in this lightning region, not a single lightning bolt struck him. Unless he was unlucky and a lightning bolt struck him when he landed. "What?" Ling Han asked casually. After Wally's eyes flashed for a while, he stopped and said, "A long time ago, I tested your evolution index. At that time, it was only 10. But now, your evolution index is as high as 11.94. Ling Han was also surprised. He knew that he had made great progress when he broke through to the Celestial King tier, and his evolution index must have skyrocketed. And the Empress and Hunyo were proof. They were originally only Emperor stars, but now they had become Super Emperor stars. Cultivating a perfect celestial seed that belonged to oneself was a kind of evolution of the level of life. But the higher one went, the harder it was to evolve. For example, the Empress and Hunyo could make their evolution index surpass 11, but Ling Han's evolution index might only increase by 0.6 or 0.7, so it shouldn't be enough to reach 12. Could it be? Previously, he had comprehended his own path during his battle with the Imperial Void Celestial King, and that even triggered the heavenly tribulation of the fiery frost plane. This also caused his level of life to increase, and thus his evolution index was infinitely close to 12. Ling Han couldn't help but feel itchy. What level had his current battle prowess reached? If he went to challenge the Nine Deaths formation again now, what kind of result could he obtain? "What, brat, your evolution index has reached 12. The large black dog was given a fright. In the celestial realm, There was no such thing as evolution index or vitality index, but this was especially popular in middle-grade planes and especially in high-grade planes. It almost had the tendency to replace cultivation levels. After arriving at the fiery frost plain, the large black dog naturally knew what these two indexes represented. Evolution Index 12 could definitely make him a celestial venerable. Ling Han chuckled and walked towards the fire hibiscus. At the beginning his aptitude couldn't be considered very good, but through his own efforts, he became a king tier, emperor tier, and monarch tier step by step, increasing his level of life. But it was said that the fire hibiscus shocked the world the moment she was born, and even before she advanced into the celestial king tier, she had already received the praise of the greatest celestial of all times. This was the true favored child of the heavens. He wondered if he, an acquired prodigy, or this favored child of the heavens, who was stronger. In the past, the fire hibiscus had suppressed Ling Han in terms of regulations, but now, Ling Han truly had the qualifications to rival those at the same cultivation level. Starting from the celestial venerable tier, is there anyone whose evolution index has reached 13? Or, in other words, every step taken in the celestial venerable tier represents a super evolution of life level. Kwang, just as these thoughts were flying through his mind, a few more bolts of lightning struck down. Ling Han easily destroyed them, but the Empress was slightly strained. She had already drawn out her celestial tool, and sword chi flashed, her battle prowess instantly soaring. With or without a celestial tool, the battle prowess of a celestial king could be said to be completely different. Ji Wuming and the fire hibiscus both had celestial tools, and in times of danger, they naturally did not hesitate to use them. They also drew out their celestial tools to resolve their own predicament. They advanced forcefully, and after a mere 2 days, they arrived at the end of this region. They were all astonished because at the end of the region, there was actually a giant currently sitting on a stone tablet. He was a full 30 meters tall, and his whole body was densely covered with blue lightning, forming a series of seals. Although he was humanoid, he did not have any facial features, nor did he have any male or female characteristics. He could only be described as humanoid. Yo, aren't you afraid that your ass will be pierced by sitting like this? The large black dog immediately said with a naughty smile. This lightning giant was sitting on the stone tablet, but the stone tablet was flat and long, and it just happened to be in the groove of his butt. Chapter 25:52. Terrifying explosions rang out everywhere. Everyone couldn't even run away because the fruits were coming at them from all directions. There was no such thing as a safe route. All of them were shaken to the point where they were fluttering in the air like rice straws. It was as if their bodies were no longer their own, and they couldn't control them at all. After a dozen breaths of time, the violent explosion finally stopped. The previously lush ground had turned into a true land of death. All the plants had been destroyed, leaving only scorched black. On the other hand, everyone was lying on the ground in disorder. No one could avoid bleeding. The 3 ninth firmament immortal monarchs were still fine. They only suffered some superficial injuries, but the others were in a much worse state. Many of their bones were broken. Ling Han released the hand that was holding the Empress. In the great explosion just now, he had tightly shielded the Empress with his body, while he himself had channeled the indestructible Heaven's Scroll. Though his injuries were not very serious, it was still unavoidable that he was covered in blood. Wally's body immediately fell apart, but he was the one who needed the least care. His body immediately reassembled as if nothing had happened. Everyone was aghast at this display of strength. How are we supposed to move forward? Everyone didn't care about this for now. They all took out medicinal pills and swallowed them. Some of them were seriously injured. The elixirs they had consumed were all extraordinary, and their injuries were rapidly recovering. But soon, everyone revealed a look of shock. That was because the originally scorched black ground was now growing green. Small saplings and grass were breaking through the soil, growing extremely quickly. In just half a day, the sapling had already grown to a height of several zhang, and the grass had also grown to the height of half a person. At the same time, flowers had bloomed. This after the flowers bloomed, they would naturally bear fruit. The colorful fruits would reappear, and this place would return to how it was before. Everyone hurriedly retreated. Advancing was, of course, an act of courting death. There were more plants there. Several days later, everyone finally recovered. The vegetation in the area had also completely recovered. It was as if they had returned to the starting point. Come, we can only rely on one person. Everyone looked towards Wally. What do you want? Even if Wally didn't understand human nature, he could still instinctively feel that these people were up to no good. Go! Imperial Void Immortal King took the initiative to grab Wall and tossed him forward. Boom! Another huge explosion occurred. This was really too terrifying. Even though everyone was standing outside, they could still feel the surging shockwaves of the explosion. These shockwaves contained rune fragments, which greatly increased the destructive power. Fortunately, they were not at the center of the explosion, so they were not greatly affected. After the explosion stopped, a large area once again turned into a wasteland. It was a scorched land, and Wally quickly recovered. His body reformed, and he returned to his human form. Of course, Varley was furious. His eyes were about to light up. A piece of immortal gold, Ling Han said. Wally immediately stopped, thought carefully, and bargained. $3. 2, no more than that, Ling Han said resolutely. All right. Wally took the initiative to move forward. Boom! He caused another huge explosion. At this time, Wally's evildoer would appear. No matter how terrifying the destructive power was, it would not be able to cause any fatal damage to him. He would recover immediately after the explosion. Every time Wally exploded a safe area, everyone would advance 1 square. How fast they could advance depended on Wally's recovery speed. Everyone could not help but sigh. This kind of recovery speed was too terrifying. No wonder he was pursued by so many people in the innate martial institution. Without a heavenly sovereign acting against him, he was completely unkillable. A day later, they finally reached the end of this area. They saw a stone stele wrapped in vines, and it was filled with purple fruits. This time, Wally did not need to go up. Everyone shook the air and detonated these fruits. It was unknown what material the stone stele was made of, but it was incredibly sturdy. It was not destroyed by the explosion and remained unscathed. Everyone dripped blood on it. The plants in the entire area seemed to have received some kind of signal, and they all sunk into the ground, causing this area to become barren. I'll stay, a super emperor star said. He was called Ji Jihong, and he did not like to talk. He had been silent the entire time, and no one expected him to take the initiative to ask for help. This was normal. After all, opening or closing the formation's eyes in every area was too laborious, and there were no benefits. Who would be willing to do such a thing? It was better to stay here. It was safe and worry-free. Moreover, when the formation completely stopped operating, the restrictions would no longer exist. It would be extremely convenient to go anywhere in this central area. Ling Han could not help but glance at He Run Hai. Although this person was smiling peacefully, he felt that there was a hint of malice in his eyes. We definitely will not stay. No matter what, we have to keep an eye on him and Lu Yufei, he said. The large black dog nodded. He was naturally shrewd. Although it was hard and tiring to break through with He Run Hai, he could take the initiative. The Empress naturally would not object. She only cared about Ling Han. They left this area and arrived at the 5th area. This was a land of flames. Raging flames soared into the sky. Before they even entered, they could already feel a terrifyingly high temperature, causing their skin to feel a strong burning sensation. This seems to be the flames of the Earth's core. It can even melt divine metal, Gu He said. Then how do we cross it? In terms of defense, there was nothing stronger and more resistant to fire than divine metal. If these flames could even melt divine metal, then even a 9th heaven celestial king would frown. It could last for a period of time, but there would be a time when its source power would be exhausted. At that time, even a 9th heaven celestial king would be refined into slag. It was just like how Ling Han's physique was invincible among his peers, but he could still use regulations to slowly refine it. Everyone was heading towards He Run Hai. What else could he do? He Run High chuckled. He took out a jade bottle and said, I said that I can help everyone. This is the frigid ice spring that I collected from the 9 hells. It can temporarily extinguish the flames. This guy was indeed well prepared. Lu Yufei lowered her gaze, her eyes filled with shock. She had thought that she had already grasped all the information about this ancient site, but now that she saw that He Run High was so well prepared, she realized that she only knew bits and pieces. She understood He Run High very well. He was definitely an ambitious person who would do anything to achieve his goals. Anyone could be sacrificed. Come. He Run High took the lead. He waved the jade bottle and a large amount of eerie water splashed out. As soon as the water splashed onto the flames, they were instantly extinguished. 9 hells yellow spring water, the large black dog muttered. His eyes were extremely bloodshot. This is good stuff. It can even seal a 9th heaven celestial king. Ling Han, on the other hand, was astonished. This guy is really willing to go all out. He even took out such a precious thing. If you can't sacrifice the child, you can't catch the wolf. He must be aiming for something even greater. The large black dog nodded. But we also have 2 9th heaven celestial kings here. Not only are they not weaker than him, but they are also stronger. Isn't he afraid that he'll just be making a gift for someone else? That means that he definitely has a way to keep things in check and ensure his own benefits. Ling Han and the large black dog were certain of this. We have to be more careful around him. Chapter 25:53. Now that they had a way to restrain it, they quickly arrived at the end of this zone. As usual, they wiped their blood on the stone tablet to activate it. This time, there was a serious disagreement over who should stay. No one wanted to stay, and they all wanted to advance. It should be known that in the previous zone, there were several people who wanted to stay, but in the end, only Ji Zhihong had spoken first. Why did everyone's attitude suddenly change? Naturally, it was because He Run High was too well prepared. They were not idiots, so they naturally found it suspicious. Who would pay such a huge price just to benefit someone else? Hence, everyone wanted to follow He Run High closely and take the initiative. He Run High chuckled and said, if no one is willing to stay, it's not like I'm out of ideas. He waved his hand and immediately, a person fell out. This was a celestial king, but he was only at the 2nd heaven, and he was currently unconscious. There were actually other celestial kings hidden in his body? However, this celestial king clearly did not follow him willingly. Instead, he had been coerced, and his consciousness had even been suppressed. Everyone was even more astonished. He Run High had even thought of this in advance. He Run High had transformed the regulations into chains and tied the 2nd heaven celestial king to the stone tablet. This way, even if the 2nd heaven celestial king woke up due to an accident, he would not be able to leave the range of the stone tablet. Let's go, He Run High said with a smile and led the way. Everyone looked at each other, but at this time, they could not and were not willing to retreat, so they all followed He Run High. No matter what, He Run High was only a 9th heaven celestial king, and not a celestial venerable. As long as the large black dog or the imperial void celestial king were here, he could not play too many tricks. They followed closely and left this place. The 6th zone was a world of ice and frost. Not only was the ground covered in ice, but there was also snow falling from the sky. Needless to say, this place was extremely cold. Perhaps even 4th or 5th heaven celestial kings would be frozen into popsicles. Everyone looked at He Run High, wondering if he could take out some flames of the great Tao to resist the bitter cold. However, He Run High smiled bitterly and said, everyone, although I have made some preparations, my ability is limited, and I can't take care of everything. Let me. Fire Hibiscus walked out. Hong, a green flame soared into the sky. She had released her origin flame, which transformed into a screen of fire above her head. The origin source flame could reach the limit in the nomological plane. Even though the fire hibiscus had not reached the 9th firmament, this origin source flame was extremely powerful. The Imperial Void Celestial King and He Run High both directly entered the world of ice and snow. They were very arrogant, and they disdained to let a junior take care of them. However, the large black dog was completely shameless, and he walked into the area enveloped by the flames without the slightest care. The fire hibiscus advanced, and everyone followed suit. Origin flames surged to resist the bitter cold. Even so, they were so cold that their lips were trembling and their faces were ghastly pale. There was nothing they could do. There was ice on the ground. Even though they were floating a few feet above the ground, cold air still seeped up from the soles of their feet and froze their blood. If they resisted with all their might, at least they had the strength to continue forward. But as they walked, they found that it was getting colder and colder. Their feet had left the ground, but the coldness in the air was even more frightening. They had no choice but to descend. In comparison, they might as well be stepping on ice. They walked, and suddenly, there was a cracking sound. Xiao Xiong's figure lowered, and he sank into the ground. Gu Hui was the closest, and he hurriedly stretched out a hand to grab Xiao Xiong. He saw that there was a large hole under his feet, and Xiao Xiong just happened to step on this hole, causing him to fall into it. A celestial king had actually fallen for such a trick? There was nothing he could do. This cold air was actually formed by the interweaving of the nomological plane, and it formed an extremely great pressure on his body. His feet suddenly became empty, and he naturally could not stop himself. Although everyone was shivering from the cold, they still worked together to pull Xiao Xiong up. Be careful, there are traps at every step here. Their advancing speed became even slower. If they took a single wrong step, they might be doomed eternally. Wally's eyes shone, and he continuously scanned the surroundings. The green light transformed into a series of ripples. Very soon, everyone discovered that after the green light passed, a shadowy area appeared. The ice there is very thin, Wally reminded them. Actually, even without his reminder, everyone already knew that there was a situation there. Naturally, they would not go there. With Wally's help, the pressure on everyone was greatly reduced. Although they were still being corroded by the bitter cold, at least it was still within an acceptable range. However, good times did not last long. Peng, a loud sound reverberated from afar, causing the ground to tremble violently. What's the situation? Everyone stopped. Peng, peng, peng. The sound got closer and closer. Crack, crack, crack. The ice was also shattering, and the cracks extended all the way here from afar. They all hurriedly moved away, because there was a lake below their feet. If they fell into it, it would definitely be terrible. A white gigantic creature appeared. It was about 7 to 8 zhang tall, and its entire body was covered with snow-white fur. It was actually a huge bear. There was no celestial light surrounding this bear, but the aura it emitted was incomparably terrifying. It was comparable to a high-level celestial king. He Runhai immediately acted. He took out a saber and slashed out. Shua, saber chi soared into the sky. Pa, that huge bear was instantly sliced into two. There was no rain of blood, no heaven and earth mourning. This was clearly not a true celestial king. It was not an celestial king, but it had the aura of an celestial king. This was extremely strange. This shouldn't be a true life form. It's more like a puppet, Xiao Xiong muttered. Everyone nodded. This should be the most reasonable explanation. They were all glad that there were 9th firmament celestial kings on this trip. Otherwise, the pressure would be too great if they had to fight a high-level celestial king in such an environment. Along the way, even more white bears appeared. However, the 3 9th firmament celestial kings took turns to kill them. This allowed them to reach the end of the 6th region without any mishaps. When they wiped their blood on the stone steel, they discovered that their hands were almost numb from the cold. Fortunately, the stone steel was immediately activated. Instantly, the cold completely dissipated, and this region was also resolved. Fire Hibiscus retracted her origin fire. He Runhai didn't even ask any questions. He directly threw out an celestial king and used the power of the law to bind him to the stone steel. They then went to the 7th region. This was a sea of swords. Not only were the ground filled with swords, but there were also sword lights streaking through the sky. They were incomparably sharp, causing everyone to frown. This sword might was extremely terrifying. It could not be underestimated. With 3 ninth firmament celestial kings leading the way, they still passed through this region and activated the 7th stone steel. Next was the 8th region. It was a black muddy ground that emitted a foul stench and was filled with poison. When everyone walked over, they immediately discovered that their protective laws were rapidly fading. What a powerful corrosive effect. However, Runhai was prepared this time. He stuck a leaf on each of them. It was plucked from the Heaven and Earth Origins tree. It had a powerful detoxifying effect. Next was the 9th region. As long as they activated the stone steel here, they would be able to open Immortal King Hefeng's final treasure trove. And at that time, it was time for those with ulterior motives to reveal their true intentions. Chapter 2554. The space in the 9th region was chaotic. One step could take them more than 10 kilometers away, and another step could take them back. If they were strong enough, they could directly break through the formation. When their strength reached a certain level, there was no need to care about the rules at all. It was like the strong could do whatever they wanted. But now, they were not as strong as Immortal King Hefeng, so they could only follow the rules Hefeng had set back then. They kept trying, and with Wally's analytical ability, they finally arrived at the end of the 9th region after more than a month. The stone tablet was already very close. "Let's begin," Runhai said, his tone somewhat excited. Once this formation I was activated, they could open the door to the treasure vault. There was everything he dreamed of. But everyone's expression was solemn. At this time, whoever had ulterior motives was about to show their true colors. But at this stage, there was naturally no reason to retreat. They all cut their fingers and smeared their blood on it. Boom! The 9th pillar of light soared into the sky. The 9 pillars of light fused and became an even thicker pillar of light, breaking through the sky. Looking up, they saw the clouds in the sky revolving around the pillar of light. It was extremely gloomy, as if some terrifying monster was about to run out from within. Clang, clang, clang. There was the sound of chains, as if some mechanism had been triggered. Huh! They looked to the left and right, only to see chains dancing in the sky, intertwining to form a large tree. Shio, a chain attacked them like a spirit snake. Runhai seemed to have expected it. He waved his hand, and an immortal king was thrown out by him. The chain immediately penetrated his body and tightly wrapped around him. Under the intense pain, the immortal king woke up. He roared and spat out blood, but his body was rapidly drying up as if he had suddenly lost all his blood. Ling Han and the others were greatly shocked, but they also had a feeling that this was within their expectations. They had always felt that Runhai must have some other plan. How could a 9th heaven immortal king be so easy to deal with? Now that his plan was revealed, he revealed his ferocious side. Clang! The metal chain carried that celestial king into the air. At the same time, there were 8 other metal chains that carried a human body from different directions. Lu Hao, Luo Yangqiu, Su Huan, and Ji Zhihong were among them. These were the people who had been left behind to guard the stone tablets in the 8 regions. Runhai, what is the meaning of this? The Imperial Void Immortal King coldly asked. Although he had reached an agreement with Xiaoying Xiong and the others, he wouldn't care about the life or death of these people. But now that this matter implicated him, he naturally had to act. Runhai stood with his hands clasped behind his back, appearing to not care at all. If no one is sacrificed, how can there be any gains? Such a simple truth, I'm sure everyone knows it. You even dare to touch the people of the number 1 martial institution under the heavens? You are truly audacious. Gu Hei's calm expression changed as he reprimanded Runhai. Runhai smiled calmly and said, without the sacrifice of these people, the origin return to 1 fruit wouldn't have been able to ripen. Everyone, which one is more important? Have you considered it carefully? He paused for a moment and then continued, those who don't want this supreme Tao fruit can leave immediately. I definitely won't stop you. However, by the time you report this to the higher-ups of the martial institution, I will have already changed my identity and disappeared in the vast sea of people. Or do you want to collect the celestial fruit together with me? The large black dog laughed loudly and said, "If you ask a tiger for its skin, you will only suffer the consequences of your own actions. He run high, you'd better obediently restrain yourself." Wait. The Imperial Void Immortal King waved his hand and stopped the large black dog. "Imperial Void, what do you mean by this? Could it be that you really want to cooperate with this guy?" The large black dog stared at the Imperial Void Immortal King, and his heart tightened. If the two Ninth Firmament Immortal Kings were to join forces against it, it would have no choice but to retreat. As expected, Brother Imperial Void is decisive. He Runhai laughed loudly and said, "We cultivators only have one goal, and that is to reach the peak of martial art. For this goal, I can even sacrifice my own son. What more an outsider?" Hearing this, everyone felt a chill in their hearts and thought, "It's really unfortunate to be your son." This was an ambitious and ruthless person, and for the sake of achieving his goal, he would use any means at all, disregarding sacrifices. Though the Imperial Void Immortal King didn't necessarily agree with his point of view, Lu Hao and the others didn't have the slightest relationship with him, so he didn't care at all, and naturally couldn't be bothered to refute. What he wanted was only the origin return to one fruit. Xiaoying Xiong and the others all wore grave expressions. The Imperial Void Immortal King's stance put them in an extremely difficult position. If they chose not to cooperate with him, then it was extremely likely that they would be killed by the Imperial Void Immortal King. But even if they agreed, this would violate a great taboo of the martial institution, so how could the Imperial Void Immortal King let them off easily? Xiao, Lu Yufei suddenly dashed out, and as her figure flashed, she took the lead and entered the center of this great formation. At first, this was solid ground, but as the chains turned into giant trees, the middle area also underwent a huge change. They could pass through, and wouldn't be affected in the slightest. Origin returned to one fruit. Everyone exclaimed in shock. Lu Yufei had definitely gone for the celestial fruit. They definitely couldn't allow her to monopolize it. Everyone hurriedly chased after her. Though Lu Yufei had previously said that there was more than one origin return to one fruit, could the words of this master and disciple be trusted? Lu Hao and the others were the best counterexample. Even the Imperial Void Immortal King couldn't restrain himself, and immediately chased after them. "Why aren't you all chasing after them?" He Runhai asked, staring at Ling Han and the others. Ling Han, the Empress, Wally, and the large black dog didn't move. The large black dog grinned, revealing 2 rows of sharp teeth. "You aren't even chasing after them, so what are we in a hurry for?" He Runhai laughed loudly. "Do you all think that you are very smart?" Surnamed He, what exactly do you have up your sleeves? Ling Han asked loudly. "A mere third heaven celestial king dares to act arrogantly in front of me?" He Ruinhai's previous modesty was gone, and he became proud and aloof. "Just now, those people are already rushing to their deaths. Though you all are slightly smarter, you will only die a little later." True enough, his true intentions were revealed, and he couldn't help but reveal his true colors. "Old brat, in front of Grandpa Dog, do you think you can do anything?" The large black dog attacked, wanting to capture He Runhai. He Runhai didn't dodge, and just continued to attack. However, when the large black dog's paw swept past, He Ruinhai's figure shuddered, and slowly became transparent. In the end, he disappeared, and only his arrogant laughter remained. Ling Han, the Empress, and the large black dog's expressions all changed. This He Runhai had already slipped away at some point, and only left behind a wisp of his divine sense here. No wonder he didn't fear the large black dog at all. That was because his true body wasn't here at all. When did he steal the beam and replace the pillar? Ling Han asked with a frown. Wally, did you notice? The large black dog asked. Wally shook his head. He also appeared very surprised. Firstly, I didn't keep an eye on him. Secondly, he didn't notice any strange fluctuations either. Then should we advance or retreat? Chapter 2556. A Beautiful Romance. Lord Ancestor. Even though Xiaoying Xiong and the others were only weak and hadn't lost consciousness, Their hearts trembled when they heard this. Immortal King Hefeng, was Immortal King Hefeng still alive? Lord Ancestor, stop pretending. He Runhai sneered. You've been planning for countless years so that if you failed to become an Empyrean, you could still have a way out. Do you think you're the only smart one? What do you mean? An ancient voice rang out, directly entering everyone's minds. This was a divine sense transmission, and the one who sent this divine sense was the Iron Tree. Do you think I don't know? He Runhai said disdainfully. When you failed to become an Empyrean, your body was destroyed, and your soul was targeted by heaven and earth. You could only hide under this 9-star grand formation and struggle at death's door. Your plan was to use an immortal tree as a seed, nurture it for several epochs, and then attract the He family's descendants to pour their essence blood into it, giving you a chance to be resurrected. Unfortunately, I've seen through your scheme a long time ago. I beat you at your own game. I released news of the ancient site to attract these idiots and break this grand formation. I let you think the time is ripe, and your soul will come out of the grand formation to nurture the Tao tree. With the Tao fruit as a body, you will be reborn and even reach a higher level. Unfortunately, these people don't have the He family's bloodline and can't be used by you. The Tao fruit can be formed, but you can't use it to be reborn. It will only help me. Haha, with the soul of a quasi-Empyrean as the core and the essence blood of many super emperor stars and immortal kings, how amazing will the Tao fruit be? I will surpass you and become a true Empyrean. Ancestor, you've already passed away. You should continue to be buried here and let your descendants live a glorious life. He continued to ramble on, causing everyone to be shocked. It turned out that they had obtained clues about Immortal King Hefeng's ancient site because of He Ruinhai's plan. He had discovered that the time was ripe, so he released the news to attract them. Sure enough, even super emperor stars were moved by the treasures of a quasi-Empyrean and walked right into the trap. This fellow was truly vicious and merciless. Not only had he schemed against them, but even their own ancestors had become his sacrificial pawns. Previously, He Runhai had said that in order to rush to the peak of martial art, he was even willing to sacrifice his own son. Thinking about it this way, what was the big deal if he also tricked his ancestor? Unfilial descendant, unfilial descendant. Tai Shu's thoughts were filled with rage. Clang. All the chains suddenly changed direction and pierced towards the top of the tree. Ancestor, since I've already said this, do you really think I won't be prepared? Sneered He Runhai. He took out a white stone and pressed it down lightly. Instantly, the stone began to shine. Clang, clang, clang. All the chains turned around once more, piercing through the bodies of Ji Wuming and the others and hanging them up. Imperial Void Immortal King was free, just about to run, but before he could escape, those chains came again, releasing fierce attacks. Haha, I didn't follow the ancestors' instructions. What's there to not enter before the deadline? He Runhai laughed loudly. I've entered this place countless times, and I've long since understood the situation here. I've long since controlled the core of this formation. Ancestor, the one in charge here is not you, but me. So what if you were once a quasi-celestial paragon? Now, you're just a remnant soul, so how can you defeat me? He Runhai suddenly pointed at Ling Han and the others. I've told you before, you can only struggle at death's door. Now that the outcome has been determined, you can all die obediently. He gripped the stone in his hand as if he was commanding it. Clang, clang. Immediately, a dozen or so chains shot towards Ling Han and the others. The large black dog roared angrily and immediately charged forward. His figure flashed, and every time he flashed, he would advance a great distance as he closed in on He Runhai. If they didn't get rid of He Runhai or seize the control core in his hands, then they would forever be beaten. However, the closer they got to Tai Shu, the shorter the distance the large black dog could teleport. In fact, he could only teleport 10 to 15 meters at a time. It was as if he had sunk into mud, and it was difficult for him to move. Ha! He Runhai laughed loudly. This is a formation set up by a quasi-celestial paragon. You're just a ninth heaven celestial king. So what if you're a super emperor star? There's no way you can break through it. As he spoke, the dozen or so chains had already shot towards the large black dog. Clang. Meanwhile, Ling Han and the others retreated. However, they discovered that the attack range of the chains was actually limited, and they couldn't reach the place they were originally at. In other words, if the large black dog didn't take the initiative to attack, the chains couldn't do anything to him. Not good, we've fallen for this guy's trap again, Ling Han said in a low voice. Runhai had intentionally revealed the secret and was extremely arrogant. It wasn't that he was too proud of himself, but rather that he was putting on an act to confuse them. As expected, the large black dog had fallen for his trap. Unfortunately, you've awakened too late. Runhai flew down from the Tai Shu. Now, 2 ninth heaven celestial kings were trapped by the chains, and the remaining 3 celestial kings were weak. He could easily deal with them. Wally was a little strange, but his battle prowess was too weak. He didn't need to kill him at all. He only needed to suppress him. Runhai walked very slowly, but his aura was very ostentatious, giving Ling Han and the others a terrifying pressure. This was a 9th heaven celestial king, and to be able to reach such a height meant that he was a monarch himself. Naturally, he was extremely terrifying. Ling Han and the others retreated slowly, but Runhai was still not in a hurry and continued to advance slowly. After a long while, Runhai finally laughed loudly. You guys should be out of ideas. He was an extremely cautious person. Even in such a situation, he still didn't let his guard down. Instead, he wanted to completely confirm the situation before finally deciding that victory was within his grasp. Obediently lie down for me. Runhai stretched out his palm, which was densely covered with seals. Old man, you've fallen for my trap as well. Xiao, a black figure leaped out from Ling Han's body, rapidly growing larger as it charged towards Runhai. It was actually the large black dog. What was going on? Wasn't the large black dog already trapped? If I let an old brat like you find out, wouldn't Grandpa Dog have lived here for nothing? The large black dog laughed loudly. He unleashed his techniques, attacking Runhai madly. At this distance, the chains could not reach him, so Runhai could only fight alone. Runhai had attacked because he was certain that victory was already within his grasp. Who would have thought that there would actually be another large black dog? You impersonated a strand of divine sense for us, thinking that we wouldn't be able to give you a taste of your own medicine? Ling Han said slowly from the side. Impossible. Runhai still didn't believe it. If it was just a strand of divine sense, how could it be a match for those chains? Don't be so surprised. What kind of person is Grandpa Dog? How could he be someone that you can figure out? The large black dog said proudly. This was the plan that they had come up with previously, and it was mainly Ling Han who had come up with it. Wally was responsible for making the large black dog's divine sense as close to the real thing as possible, while the large black dog's true body was hidden in Ling Han's spatial god tool, and he was responsible for the final battle. Now that the large black dog had taken all the credit for this, Wally naturally felt that it was shameful. Reading on a phone is more refreshing. Chapter 2557. Runhai was extremely displeased. He had prided himself on his unparalleled intelligence. He had even seen through the scheme of the pseudo-heavenly venerable tier ancestor and used him to help him achieve his Tao fruit. But now, he had actually been schemed against by someone else. This naturally caused him to fly into a rage out of humiliation. His intelligence had been destroyed. This was far too humiliating. However, the large black dog had already charged over, and he had no time to think. He had to use his full power to deal with him. In a battle of the same cultivation level, a super emperor star could easily crush a monarch tier. The metal chains that filled the sky were flying, yet they couldn't reach this area at all, so they couldn't help Runhai at all. I'll beat you to death, you old geezer. The large black dog used his full power. He stood on his hind legs and waved his claws, shooting out bursts of black light that tore through space and shook the galaxy. Runhai had no intention of fighting the large black dog head-on. He only wanted to break through. As long as he returned to the range of the iron tree's tentacles, He would be invincible unless another pseudo-heavenly venerable came. He was determined to break through, but there was a gap of 2 evolution levels, which was equivalent to a large gap between their cultivation levels. His desire to break through could not be realized. You dare to trick your grandpa dog. The large black dog exploded in anger. It had always been him who schemed against others, but now he was being schemed against by someone else. This caused him to feel an indescribable fury. Runhai didn't answer. He waved his celestial saber, wanting to charge out in a single blow. However, Ling Han had also handed the divine demon sword to the large black dog in advance. Celestial tools against celestial tools. The divine demon sword had been fused with a great deal of divine metal, and in terms of toughness and sharpness, it was far superior to ordinary celestial tools. In a head-on clash, Runhai's celestial saber was suppressed by the divine demon sword, and his own battle prowess was inferior to the large black dog, so he appeared to be in an even more difficult situation. Damn it! Damn it! Runhai roared loudly. Everything had been clearly under his control, yet the sudden change in the situation caused him to suddenly fall into a swamp. Unfilial descendant, give up your control of the black gold tree, and I can save you, the iron tree said. It was pseudo-heavenly venerable Runhai didn't reply. The reason why he could be so sure of victory was because he grasped the black gold tree, and the core was the white stone in his hand. This was the control pivot. He never trusted anyone but himself. Previously, he had expressed his thoughts of deceiving his master. Once he let go of his control over the black gold tree, he would no longer be able to hold Feng hostage. At that time, a quasi-heavenly venerable might even become a true Empyrean in a single leap. At that time, destroying him would be as easy as flipping his palm. He didn't believe that Feng would spare him because of their bloodline. If it was him, he would definitely kill the other party and make them suffer countless tortures, even if it was his own son. Not only did he not intend to hand over the control hub, but he also kept the white stone and focused on breaking out of the encirclement. Do you really think that I don't have a way? He sneered. As a 9th firmament immortal king, how could he be an ordinary person? How could he not have a trump card? He let out a long roar, and a strange fluctuation rippled out. His battle prowess had obviously soared. Previously, it was said that as long as the difference in cultivation level wasn't great, a celestial king couldn't be stopped if he wanted to break out of the encirclement. The large black dog was indeed 2 ranks higher than Runhai, but if one considered the difference in cultivation level, then even a single cultivation level was barely enough. With Runhai's explosive power, the large black dog was a bit unable to stop him. Fuck your grandma, do you think that grandpa dog won't flip out? The large black dog roared in anger, and also used a secret technique. Multiple seals flickered on his body, and his battle prowess also soared. The two of them battled, and the large black dog just barely managed to stop Runhai. Ling Han and the Empress also moved. Though there was a huge gap between their battle prowess and the 9th firmament, their offensive power couldn't be underestimated either. What celestial king would dare say that they could casually attack him? They were only responsible for restraining Runhai and not allowing him to break through and return to the area of the iron tree. You can't stop me! Runhai roared. He charged forward without any regard for anything. He was slashed by the large black dog's paw, and one of his arms was instantly severed. Meanwhile, the attacks of Ling Han and the Empress had also left deep wounds on his body. However, he charged out of the large black dog's encirclement, moving as fast as lightning. Stop for Grandpa Dog. The large black dog used spatial teleportation, wanting to stop Runhai. Runhai's body and saber became one, and his speed suddenly increased explosively. He spat out a mouthful of celestial king blood, but rushed out before the large black dog could successfully stop him. He was like a flash of light, and shot into the area of the iron tree. The large black dog suddenly stopped. He couldn't advance any further, or it would be his turn to be beaten up if he entered into the area of the iron tree. Runhai stopped incredibly paused. He had lost an arm, and there were also 2 wounds on his abdomen. Celestial King blood flowed continuously, but as long as he didn't die, This kind of injury was a small matter. He would be able to heal eventually. He looked menacingly at the large black dog Ling Han and the Empress and enunciated each word clearly. When I consume the origin return to one fruit and take that crucial step, it will be the day you all die. Pei, Grandpa Dog doesn't want to play with you anymore. I'm leaving. The large black dog deliberately turned around and gave He Runhai a backside. His iron underwear reflected light and could be blinded by it. He Runhai was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood again. He sped up his arm and allowed the wounds on his abdomen to heal. On the surface, he looked fine, but only he knew how serious his internal injuries were. But it didn't matter. In this area, he was an invincible king. You can't escape, he said coldly. The path has been sealed, and you don't have enough Super Emperor Star living blood, so how can you open the door? You are just turtles in a jar. He didn't care anymore. As long as he suppressed the Imperial Void Celestial King and extracted his blood essence, the origin return to one fruit would ripen, and he would pluck the fruit and consume it, and then break through to the pseudo-celestial tier. At that time, he would be invincible. The Imperial Void Celestial King didn't last for long either. He was indeed strong, but he wasn't strong enough to fight against thousands or tens of thousands of Celestial Kings of the same level and still be able to break through. In the end, he was suppressed, and his entire body was wrapped in iron chains, and one of them directly pierced through his chest, extracting his blood essence. The Imperial Void Celestial King roared in fury. To think that he was a close to invincible existence in the celestial realm, but in the Flame Frost plane, not only did he have to lower his head and act carefully, but now he was even about to have his blood essence extracted, and death seemed to be imminent. How could he be willing? Xiao Yingxiong, Ji Wuming, and the others were all groaning. Their blood essence was continuously flowing out, and they became incredibly weak. He Runhai laughed loudly. Though there had been a small mistake, he had finally returned to the right track, and everything was under his control. Ling Han's brows were tightly furrowed. Should he use the Dimension Scroll and summon the Heavenly Tribulation? But if that happened, it would be difficult for him to escape. He couldn't help but think of the question he had asked Wally previously and had been asked by Wally in return. If the enemy captured his lover to threaten him, how should he choose? Though the Empress wasn't in He Runhai's hands now, the situation was similar. He immediately firmed his conviction. For the sake of his lover, he could sacrifice himself. Sigh. But right at this moment, a leisurely voice suddenly rang out. It was still He Feng. What else did he want to say? Did he think that He Runhai would listen? Unfilial descendant, do you really think that everything is under your control? Chapter 2558. A Beautiful Romance. He Runhai was shocked at first, but he immediately sneered. That was natural. He controlled the core of the formation, so the outcome was already set. Old ancestor, you don't need to put up any pointless resistance. Fine, it's time for me to use your soul as a core to condense my Dao fruit, he said indifferently. The Tai Shu had already extracted enough essence blood, so it was time to complete the final step. This energy-returning fruit was not a natural celestial fruit, but a man-made one. Rather than saying it was a celestial fruit, it was more like a special alchemy technique. Harvesting the soul of a quasi-celestial venerable, along with the accumulation of countless years, it finally became a peerless pill. Of course, everything before was a lie. There was only one energy-returning fruit, and only celestial kings at the peak of the ninth heaven could use it to become a quasi-celestial venerable. He took out the white stone, wanting to extract Celestial King He Feng's soul, but as soon as he activated it, his expression changed. It didn't move. How was this possible? He clearly controlled the core of the formation, and He Feng was only left with a remnant soul. How could he not do anything? Ha! He Feng let out a long sigh. You have indeed misunderstood me. This was originally a great stroke of good fortune for the He family's descendants. It could help you take the most critical step and step into the ranks of quasi-Empyreans. Unfortunately, you are selfish and never trust others. You are too clever for your own good. He Ruinhai's expression was fierce as he said loudly, "So what? I have full control of the situation now. Since you are wholeheartedly doing this for the descendant, then obediently use your soul as the core and let the Tao fruit grow." Celestial King He Feng smiled. "Why would the energy-returning fruit need my soul to mature? You are wrong, wrong from the very beginning. Nonsense, nonsense." He Runhai scolded. He desperately activated the white stone, wanting to extract He Feng's soul from the center of the formation and complete the most crucial setup. A ray of light lit up from the center of the formation, and then a figure appeared. It was formed from countless rays of light, and it was difficult to see its face. Even its figure was indistinct. How did you escape?" He Runhai turned pale with fright, as if he had seen a ghost. Because this figure was the ancestor of the He family, He Feng. The bloodline connection allowed him to immediately determine that the other party was He Feng, his ancestor. But it was also because of this that he was extremely shocked. How could He Feng appear? He was only a remnant soul, and only by hiding in the formation could he avoid being discovered and targeted by heaven and earth. But now, he had actually escaped. This was something impossible. Otherwise, why would this old ancestor have planned for several epochs? Wasn't it precisely to let the essence return to one fruit ripen? "Who told you that I'm trapped here?" He Feng said indifferently, but there was an indescribable domineeringness to his words. "You're not stuck here. What are you doing here? Is it fun?" He Feng waved his hand. The metal tree emitted Kinqiang sounds. Put, put, put. Immortal King Imperial Void and the others were all flung out. All of them barely managed to stand up, their faces deathly pale. All of them had lost a large amount of blood essence, their vitality suffering a great loss. But he didn't die. That was good. He Runhai couldn't help but roar, "You're crazy. They're all nourishment. Didn't you plan for so long just to extract their essence blood to nourish the essence return to one fruit so that you can be reborn? I've already told you before that this essence return to one fruit was actually prepared for my descendants, but your actions have disappointed me. Should I still leave it for you?" asked He Feng. He Runhai didn't believe it. How could there be such a good person in this world? He would give up his chance to be reborn just to benefit his descendants. Ling Han interrupted, "Senior, could it be that you succeeded in breaking through to the Empyrean realm back then?" He had succeeded, but he had also suffered heavy injuries and needed countless years to recuperate. At the same time, he had also set up a trap to create a great opportunity for his descendants. It was just that the He family seemed to have a bad habit of being overly suspicious. If he had clearly explained the situation, there definitely wouldn't have been so many problems. But he just had to test the loyalty of his descendants. He Runhai was also the kind of person who would even sacrifice his own son. In the end, there was a problem. Who was to blame? He Feng faltered and then laughed. "You're quite smart, brat. Unfortunately, you're not my descendant. What a pity, what a pity. How is this possible?" He Runhai cried out involuntarily. "Since you succeeded in breaking through to the Empyrean realm, why did you bury yourself here? You lied to me, you must have lied to me." He Feng's figure slowly became more solid, and his facial features also became clearer. His appearance could now be distinguished. He appeared to be in his 20s, but he was full of heroic spirit and was filled with an indescribable pressure. "Empyrean!" the large black dog exclaimed. He had followed the Empyrean of Origin Born for countless years, so he was naturally very familiar with the aura of a Empyrean. This was a Empyrean, a genuine one. He Feng clasped his hands behind his back and said, "Back then, I had indeed succeeded, and truly pushed open the door to the Empyrean realm. However, I knew my own limits. Being able to become an Empyrean was already because I was in a super high-level plane, and the regulations here were closer to the essence of power. However, if I wanted to take another step forward and touch the essence of power of the origin world, that was an impossible thing. The first step of becoming Empyrean was to grasp the unique power of a plane. This was not true transcendence, because if one went to another plane, they would need to once again grasp that unique power. Only then would they be able to possess the strength of an Empyrean again. Only by becoming a second-step Empyrean, and truly grasping one of the 6 great essence powers of the origin world, would they be able to look down on heaven and earth, and travel through any plane. Thus, I thought, since frenzy can swallow the heavens and devour the earth, and even surpass the limit of a 7th-step Empyrean, then why can't I? He Feng said calmly. His tone was very calm, but the meaning behind his words caused everyone's hearts to tremble. That's right, I purposely destroyed my physical body. During this long period of time, I have been fusing with this thing. Behind him, there was shockingly an additional tail. Having a tail was not something strange. There were many half-humans in this world, and long horns, long tails, and long tails were all very common. However, He Feng's tail was wrapped with a black light, and emitted an indescribable pressure. This time, Ling Han was really shocked, and he even revealed a look of anger. This is Frenzy's tentacle. He had seen it in the immortal region plane. Back then, Zhou Heng had crossed planes, and in the end, Frenzy had followed him. One attack had nearly killed Empyrean Greenfire. And what Ling Han and the others had found was something that looked like an octopus tentacle. Ling Han had a very deep memory of He Feng's tail. It was Frenzy's tentacle. He Feng was slightly taken aback, and he could not help but say, "A mere 3rd firmament celestial king has actually seen Frenzy?" It had to be known that even peak 9th firmament celestial kings could only play the role of cannon fodder when they went to the outer realm battlefield. They could die at any time. It was hard to imagine that Ling Han had seen Frenzy before. Ling Han nodded. "Yes." He Feng chuckled. "It doesn't matter. I am willing to tell you all this, so I have no intention of keeping it a secret. That's right, I have fused with Frenzy's tentacle, and I have been fusing with it for so many years. Next, I will go to a low-level plane, kill all the experts there, and then devour that plane. I believe that in the future, I will definitely become the 2nd Frenzy." Really crazy. Chapter 2560. Many thanks, Senior. Everyone bowed towards the black donkey. Otherwise, He Feng could have easily silenced them and then left. A celestial sovereign was such a powerful existence. "Senior, aren't you afraid that He Feng will harm you if you let him go just like that?" Xiao Xiong asked. The black donkey chuckled. "That old guy is already at his limit after becoming a heavenly venerable. He can't possibly become a 2nd-step heavenly venerable. Devouring a plane with such strength is really a joke." It paused. Compared to Frenzy, he's just trash. Everyone clenched their teeth in their hearts. This black donkey should only be a 1st-step heavenly venerable, but he was so arrogant. It really made them speechless. However, this essence-returning fruit is real. If you eat it, your strength will increase, the black donkey continued. Everyone's faces twitched as they looked at the fruit in their hands. This thing grew from an iron tree. Could it really be eaten? Hurry up. The celestial fruit has already been cut open, and a portion of its essence will be lost every moment, the black donkey shouted. Everyone hurriedly ate their portion, including Vale. He wasn't human, but that didn't mean he couldn't digest the benefits of the celestial fruit. They sat down cross-legged, and only the large black dog and Imperial Void Celestial King stood there, bored. The large black dog's eyes darted around, and he suddenly jogged over to the black donkey's side, starting to get close to it. One was a dog and the other was a donkey, but they very quickly started talking and laughing. They even put their arms around each other's shoulders as if they were good friends. Ling Han's feeling was not wrong. As the saying went, birds of a feather flocked together. The fact that Erhei and Erhei were so close to each other meant that they clearly had a common language. However, Ling Han didn't have time to care about this now. He was refining the essence-returning fruit. Putting aside the fact that this fruit needed to extract the blood essence of a celestial king emperor star, just the fact that it had grown for a few epochs was enough to show its extraordinariness. According to He Feng, if this fruit fully matured, it could allow a 9th heaven celestial king to directly become a quasi-heavenly venerable. Although the effects were slightly weaker now, and it had been divided into many pieces, it was still a rare treasure for low-level celestial kings. This was not a pure immortal fruit, but a type of pill. Of course, this kind of concoction method was also very difficult to imitate. As soon as Ling Han circulated the medicinal effects, he discovered that not only could it push his cultivation level forward, it could also push the indestructible heaven scroll to a higher level. However, there was only one immortal fruit. If he cared about his cultivation, he couldn't care about his physique. Which one to choose? Ling Han only hesitated slightly before deciding to cultivate the indestructible heaven scroll first. Innate, Wally's physique and recovery ability had touched him greatly. Previously, this was something that belonged to him, but now, he could only watch helplessly as others had such abilities. This made him very anxious. He circulated the indestructible heaven scroll, crazily absorbing the benefits of the origin return to one fruit. Multiple symbols flickered on the surface of his body, as if they were explaining the secrets of the ancient heavens. This immortal fruit required several epochs to grow, and it contained an incomparably rich amount of energy. Ling Han spent a total of 39 days to completely refine it. He was somewhat regretful but also somewhat happy. When the indestructible heaven scroll was cultivated to the celestial king tier, there were a total of 9 levels, known as the indestructible celestial king body. Each level corresponded to a heaven of the celestial king tier. For example, one level of the indestructible celestial king tier was equivalent to the full defense of a first heaven celestial king tier. However, the advantage of the indestructible heaven scroll was that it cultivated physique, and physique was permanent. He had now advanced the indestructible celestial king tier to the 6th level, which was quite extraordinary, but still a bit away from the peak stage of the 9th level. Moreover, the advancement of the indestructible heaven scroll was not affected by cultivation level. As long as Ling Han's comprehension ability was strong enough, and he had enough resources, he could completely advance the indestructible celestial king tier to the next level, reaching the eternal celestial gold body, and his physical body would truly be comparable to celestial gold. There was still one more level, which was also the final level, and that was the indestructible heavenly venerable body. However, the heavenly venerable Fate-born had only cultivated half a level, and though his physical body was stronger than celestial gold, it was not at the level of the full defense of a first-step heavenly venerable. It couldn't be helped. The heavenly venerable Fate-born died early, or he might have long since perfected this cultivation technique. My recovery ability has also greatly improved. The indestructible true fluid has now turned into mist, filling every part of my body, and I can automatically recover no matter how serious my injuries are. However, the ability of rising from the ashes can't be used for the time being. This involved the level of regulations, but this was the fiery frost plane, and the cultivation technique needed to be adjusted to conform to the great Tao here. Moreover, the level of regulations can only be applied to celestial kings. If I break through to heavenly venerable tier, then rising from the ashes will be completely ineffective. Celestial kings were favored by the heaven and earth, so there might be a sliver of a chance for rebirth, but heavenly venerables definitely couldn't. If they died, they would really die. Moreover, my evolution index seems to have increased a little again. Ling Han murmured. Previously, he was infinitely close to 12, but now he felt that he had already taken this step. Because his cultivation level didn't increase in the slightest, but his battle prowess increased a lot, and this could only be explained in terms of the level of evolution. Ling Han was the first to complete the refinement. Following him, Fire Hibiscus, Ji Wuming, and the others also stopped. Vale was the slowest, but he was also the most indifferent. His body could digest the benefits on its own. Since you're all done, then scram. The black donkey moved, and after tearing open the space, he kicked everyone in one by one. Then he stepped in himself. Xiao, the space recovered, and this place immediately returned to its original state. Everyone shuttled through the void, and very soon, they all fell out. As expected, they had already returned to the #1 martial institution under the heavens. Scram, scram. The black donkey impatiently fanned its hooves. Actually daring to make this venerable one wait for so many days, what a bunch of troublesome little brats. That little doll, you will also be a member of the martial institution in the future. These words were directed at Lu Yufei. Lu Yufei was instantly overjoyed. Actually, she had also tricked Ling Han and the others, and was just worried whether they would settle the score with her later, but now that she had become a student of the number 1 martial institution under the heavens, her life would be guaranteed. Humph! The Imperial Void Immortal King waved his sleeves, and was the first to leave. He was far too displeased. Although the others had been injured and had suffered, they had at least obtained benefits. What about him? Not only had he suffered a great loss of vitality, but the ancient bell had also lost a great deal of its essence. This trip was practically a huge loss for him. He turned to look at Ling Han, killing intent pulsing in his eyes. He definitely had to get rid of this young man, but not now. The Imperial Void Immortal King let out a battle cry, and quickly left. Xiao Yingxiong and the others also left one after another. Although they had suffered a great disaster previously, they had obtained great benefits in the end. Everyone's cultivation level had skyrocketed, and they only needed to accumulate a little, and they would be able to break through. Moreover, after breaking through, they would be able to maintain the rapid growth of their cultivation level for a period of time. All in all, they had still made a profit. However, they had not killed Ling Han. "Little Black, let's go as well," Ling Han said to the large black dog. Peng Ling Han was immediately knocked over by a hoof, only to see that the black donkey's 2 hooves had both landed on his chest, and even its nose was spewing fire. "Brat, who are you calling Little Black?" Great, he had forgotten that this guy was also dressed entirely in black. Chapter 2561. Ling Han chuckled and said, "I forgot about Senior. I was talking to that big black dog." The black donkey didn't really want to settle the score with him. It quickly retracted its hooves and said, "Zhou Heng praised you so well, but there's nothing special about you around me." "Zhou Heng?" Ling Han was shocked and said, "Is Senior on good terms with Senior Zhou Heng?" "Hee, that brat was brought up by me." The black donkey was instantly very proud. Ling Han couldn't help but nod to the big black dog in his heart. These two were definitely the same kind of people. They weren't even afraid to brag. "Brat, what's with that look?" The big black dog and the black donkey called out at the same time. As expected. "Does Senior Zhou Heng have any instructions?" Ling Han asked. The black donkey was shocked and said, "That's right. That brat Zhou Heng did ask me to pass a few words to you. You're quite smart." Ling Han chuckled and said, "Senior Zhou Heng went to the extraterrestrial battlefield?" The black donkey nodded. Recently, the attacks launched by Frenzy have suddenly become more violent. The number of celestial venerables mobilized is shocking. Among them, there are even some new species that we haven't seen before. They've caused great losses on our side, so all the high-level celestial venerables have gone to hold the fort. "How bad is the situation?" Ling Han asked in a low voice. The extraterrestrial battlefield was closely related to everyone. Once Frenzy broke through the defensive line, the entire Yuan world would fall. "Brat, this isn't something you should be concerned about right now." The black donkey scolded. "Aren't you curious what that brat Zhou Heng wanted me to pass on to you?" Ling Han finally said, "Of course I'm curious." The black donkey couldn't help but feel depressed. This brat's expression clearly didn't have much curiosity. He was just brushing it off. "That brat Zhou Heng said that if you don't want to increase your cultivation quickly, you can stay in the academy and improve step by step. However, if you want to charge into the 9 heavens in the shortest time possible, you can go to a place," the black donkey said. Ling Han's eyes lit up. "What place?" "A very dangerous place that can easily consign you to eternal damnation," the black donkey said seriously. Not only was Ling Han not afraid, but he was even more excited. "Senior Mule, please enlighten me." The black donkey shook its head. "It's just as Zhou Heng said. You're really interested in that place." Ling Han chuckled. He was the same kind of person, but he and Zhou Heng were the same kind of person. So what if it was dangerous? It would definitely be accompanied by opportunities. Wasn't challenging danger to improve oneself the best path of cultivation? "That place is called the Cemetery of the Immortal King," said the black donkey. "Cemetery?" Ling Han looked at the black donkey with a strange expression. Was this guy asking him to rob a grave? It's not a real cemetery. It's just that there are too many immortal kings that have died there. It's like a cemetery. The black donkey pondered for a moment. Actually it should be called a mass grave. Many immortal kings don't even have a place to be buried. Ling Han was surprised. What kind of place is this? In the beginning, this was a prison where some extremely vicious and evil immortal kings were locked up, explained the black donkey. Since they were extremely vicious and evil, why didn't they just get rid of them? Asked Ling Han. The black donkey shook its head. Some immortal kings have extremely powerful backgrounds. If they were killed, it would cause huge problems. Ling Han understood now. These days, people with powerful backgrounds would not die no matter how big the trouble they caused. At most, they would be exiled or locked up. Unless there was a supreme figure presiding over the matter, they would cut the Gordian knot quickly. But with the threat of madness, everyone's goal was to resist it. They needed to unite all the high-end forces. They could not possibly turn against the celestial venerables just because of one or two immortal kings, right? That's why the immortal king prison appeared. The black donkey nodded. It knew that Ling Han had figured out what was going on. As time passed, there were more and more immortal kings in that prison, and the territory grew larger and larger. There are no rules there. It's full of killing, violence, and darkness. Just because you look at someone else, it might inexplicably trigger a fierce battle to the death. I don't know when it started, but an immortal king actually snuck in and trained there. In a short 100 million years, he advanced from the 4th level to the 9th level. When he appeared and spoke of his experiences over the years, it caused a huge commotion. Many immortal kings followed suit. But once more people entered, many were naturally discovered by the immortal kings inside and were cruelly slaughtered. Immortal king blood spilled there every day, and immortal king corpses could be found everywhere. But with the immortal king's blood watered, there were also more immortal king medicines than any other place. Kid, do you still want to go there now? The black donkey looked at Ling Han. If you choose to go in, you will be responsible for your own life. In order to prevent the celestial venerables from going in to save people, several 7-step celestial venerables joined forces to set up restrictions. It's easy to enter, but hard to leave. This venerable one cannot appear when you are in danger. He can only come and receive you at a fixed time. Ling Han immediately smiled. Of course I'm going. The black donkey bared its teeth. Aren't you going to think about it? There's no need. Ling Han was resolute and decisive. The black donkey bawled loudly. This brat Zhou Heng has guessed correctly again. This venerable one has lost again. Ayaya, you brat, will it kill you to think about it? It was so angry that its nostrils were spitting fire. This was a power that surpassed the regulations. It had intrinsic power, and it was incomparably terrifying. Ling Han, the Empress, and the large black dog hurriedly retreated. Only Wally was very interested. His eyes flickered continuously, as if he was trying to calculate the method of using this power. Ling Han chuckled. I'm really sorry, Senior Donkey. After the black donkey jumped for a while, it snickered. It's fine. As long as I send you away, I can say whatever I want. This meant that it was going to lie. Fuck, what celestial venerables? He was too shameless. The large black dog's eyes lit up, and he pounced over to hug the black donkey's leg. Brother, Grandpa Dog has finally found an idol. From today onwards, Grandpa Dog will follow you. The black donkey was very smug and extremely shameless. Ling Han was speechless. With the two of them together, who knew how many people they would harm in the future? What do you plan to do? He turned to ask the Empress. The Empress didn't speak and only smiled. She was so beautiful that she could topple cities. Ling Han nodded. The Empress would definitely advance and retreat with him. Moreover, he now had a spatial celestial tool that even a 9th heaven celestial king would find it hard to destroy. The Empress and the others would be quite safe by his side. As long as he could ensure his own safety. Brat, after you enter the Celestial King Cemetery, you definitely can't expose your identity. The celestial kings there have been locked up for too long. Firstly, there's something wrong with their brains, and secondly, there's killing every day. Everyone is a pervert, and they hate celestial kings who come from the outside to train. So, if your identity is exposed, everyone will want to beat you up. Even if you have 3 heads and 6 arms, and your cultivation level is at the 9th heaven, it's useless. One punch from each person will be enough to make you piss your pants. The black donkey warned. Ling Han nodded. Don't worry, senior donkey. I will be careful. Tisk, why should I worry? For you. Do you need my concern? The black donkey scoffed. Ling Han smiled. The black donkey was the same as the large black dog. They were definitely evil, but they also had a soft-hearted side. It was just that they always hid it, and purposely said some stubborn words. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 2562. Ling Han returned to his abode first. This trip to the cemetery of the Celestial King was definitely not a matter of a day or two. He needed to arrange everything properly. Bewitching Maiden Row and the women in the spatial celestial tool naturally had no objections, and wanted to follow Ling Han. Ling Han went to see the Rain Emperor, and after explaining the situation, the Rain Emperor expressed that he had not cultivated his own path, and needed to absorb the foundation of martial art for a period of time in the academy, but he would definitely go there. Ling Han naturally supported this second brother's idea. He went to Yi Yen Xianlu and the others, as well as Ling Hua and the others, and left behind some alchemical pills. He set a time for himself, and planned to stay in the cemetery of the Celestial King for 100 million years. In these 100 million years, he could not leave. Only by surviving until that time would the black donkey come to receive him. Otherwise, he would have to become a celestial venerable, and forcibly tear open a corner of the prison to escape. This was indeed an extremely risky decision. In any case, the large black dog and Wally did not say that they wanted to go with him, so they were very disloyal. Ling Han pulled Wally along to talk in detail for a few days, asking the latter to analyze his own path of martial arts. He had relied on his own trial and error to climb his way up, so there might be some minor details that he was lacking, and Wally's analysis was the most rigorous. Of course, Ling Han would not completely believe his analysis, but used it as a reference. He naturally did not have the time to challenge the 9 Deaths formation, but it was said that Tianxing had erupted, and his ranking in the 5th stage had greatly improved, surpassing Ah Mu, Waning Moon, and the others, showing his freakish talent. Ling Han's resolve became even stronger. He definitely had to surpass Tianxing in cultivation level, and then defeat this guy, releasing that sliver of the will of the Heavenly Venerable of Original Birth, and thus revive the Heavenly Venerable of Original Birth. He temporarily set aside his conflict with Tianxing, Xiaoying Xiong and the others, and headed to the cemetery of the Celestial King with the black donkey leading. There are actually many students in the academy, but no one will reveal their identities. So, if you really do end up fighting an enemy, you don't have to show any mercy. Otherwise, you'll only be throwing your life away, Black Donkey warned. Ling Han nodded. Unless he could push his undying immortal king physique to the 9th level, he would be able to escape unscathed even if he were to face a 9th heaven immortal king. Otherwise, if he was surrounded by countless immortal kings, he would definitely be in trouble. Just look at Imperial Void Immortal King. He was one of the top existences amongst immortal kings. But when he was surrounded by tens of thousands of 9th level heaven level chains, wasn't he still captured in the end? An army of ants could bite an elephant to death, not to mention that there were numerous extraordinary figures in the Immortal King's cemetery. The black donkey tore through space. Celestial venerables were really fast, but the black donkey was still extremely careful. This was because it was very dangerous in the void, and it was possible for it to be attacked in a frenzy. Even if it was a first-step celestial venerable, it was very likely that it would be killed directly. Fortunately, they arrived at a cemetery without a hitch. Ling Han couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Didn't they say that cemetery was just an adjective? Why did they really have to bring him to a cemetery? This is the entrance, stupid. The black donkey scoffed. It brought Ling Han to the front of a large tomb, stretched out its hoof, and pressed on the tombstone. The characters on the tombstone lit up one by one. Going in is easy, but coming out is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. It reminded Ling Han again. In these 100 million years, you won't be able to obtain anyone's help. You can only rely on yourself. I know. Ling Han nodded. Go on. The black donkey kicked out. Pung! Ling Han's head slammed into the tombstone. His figure directly sank into the tombstone, and he disappeared without a trace. I'm really looking forward to seeing what heights this kid will reach in 100 million years. The black donkey rubbed its hoof, its face filled with anticipation. It tore open space and stepped inside. Instantly, the space closed up, leaving only a faint ripple. After a while, 3 figures flew over. It was as if they had stepped through the ages, and they exuded boundless tyranny. These 3 people were all 7th heaven immortal kings, and their bodies were wrapped in 7 different colors. They were Gu He, Miao Hua, and Xiaoing Xiong. They had refined the energy-returning fruit and achieved breakthroughs in a short period of time, becoming 7th heaven immortal kings. With their talent as super emperor stars, their battle prowess naturally far exceeded this level. That kid entered the immortal king cemetery. With his monstrous talent, if we let him grow, his cultivation will definitely surpass ours when he comes out. We have to get rid of him. Moreover, he has a huge secret. I suspect that he has been tempered by the 6 great intrinsic powers. Otherwise, his body technique wouldn't be so monstrous. Kill him and obtain this technique. Our chances of becoming heavenly venerables will definitely increase greatly. The 3 of them moved and pressed their hands on the tombstone. Immediately, the characters lit up again. The Immortal King Cemetery was easy to enter, but difficult to leave. Any immortal king could easily open the entrance, but if one wanted to leave, even 9th heaven immortal kings could only watch helplessly. Only heavenly venerables could use their own strength to tear open the restrictions. Shio. The 3 of them also walked in. Ling Han was kicked out, and his figure staggered. When he steadied his feet, he saw that he had already arrived in a gloomy place. The sky was densely covered with dark clouds, and there was a black aura rising from the ground all around him, turning into all kinds of strange characters. He was in no hurry to leave. Instead, he adjusted his condition and adapted to the environment here. After a while, he stood up and surveyed his surroundings. This was a barren mountain, and not a single blade of grass grew. He advanced in a certain direction, spreading his celestial king power. 3 days later, a large city appeared in front of him. Spirit King City. These were the 3 large characters written above the city gates. The strokes were bold, and they exuded a kind of domineering aura. There was also a kind of wild intent, revealing the aura of a formidable hero in the world. There were actually guards outside the city gates, but they weren't celestial kings, but rather ascending origin tier ones. Ling Han was curious. Wasn't this place only to imprison celestial kings? But he immediately came to a realization. There were celestial kings who wholeheartedly pursued the peak of martial art, but there were also celestial kings who liked to have fun, and there were countless killings here, which would also give rise to another kind of primitive desire. Thus, it wasn't strange for celestial kings to give birth and reproduce. Halt! Ling Han had just arrived at the city gates when he was stopped by these guards. Do you have an entry talisman? They asked. Ling Han already had a rough idea that there were many powerful celestial kings here that had established their own territories. For example, this Spirit King City was one of them, and the entry talisman was an identity talisman created by a certain force, proving that you were a member of this place. The various forces didn't prohibit the movement of people as long as they could afford the entry fee. Ling Han shook his head. I have just entered this place and don't have an entry talisman. Once these words were spoken, these guards immediately acted as if they were facing a great enemy. Someone sent out a signal, and a 7th heaven celestial king appeared, sizing up Ling Han. What crime did you commit? This celestial king asked. Ling Han smiled calmly. Killed someone in the #1 martial academy in the world, and was sentenced to stay here forever. That 7th heaven celestial king couldn't help but be shocked. The words, #1 martial academy in the world, carried too much weight. Those who could enter it were at least monarch tiers, and there were even emperor stars, super emperor stars, and even freaks whose evolution index had reached 12. He revealed a serious expression. Who did you kill and why did you kill him? The Black Donkey and Ling Han had already verified his identity. His current name was Li Long, and he had indeed killed someone. His name was Zhao Ting, and this could be found in the #1 martial academy in the world. They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.